I sat in my senior year classroom at #1 high school, staring blankly at the chalkboard. Suddenly, a voice echoed in my head, dripping with temptation. Congratulations, host. The pay-to-win system has successfully bound to you. The voice continued, asking if I was tired of being a loser with endless wealth but zero talent. It promised to solve all my problems. With this system, SSS-grade talent wasn't a dream, and the legendary god-tier realms were finally within reach. The catch? I just had to spend money. Opportunity knocks but once, the voice whispered. Top up 1 million yuan now to receive your newbie gift pack. I froze in my seat, stunned. Then, a wave of pure joy washed over me. The system. It was finally here. I had been waiting 2.5 years for this moment. I wasn't from this world. I was a transmigrator. 2.5 years ago, I arrived in this place where martial arts and strength meant everything. Thousands of years ago, portals to another dimension opened, and endless beasts flooded our world. The planet, known as Blue Star, changed forever as spiritual energy returned. At first, humans were slaughtered. Modern weapons were useless against high-level beasts. In our darkest hour, we discovered how to use that spiritual energy and created the first cultivation technique, the 5 elements art. Even then, we barely survived. It wasn't until a legendary figure known as the Sword Saint appeared that the tide turned. With a single sword, he wiped out the beast hordes and established the peaceful era we live in now. The Sword Saint vanished after that, and the beasts stopped their massive invasions. Even though 1,000 years had passed, his name was etched into everyone's heart. But lately, things were getting bad again. The new generation of geniuses wasn't enough to stop the skirmishes at the borders, and the top-tier powerhouses were aging. There was a massive gap in our fighting force. None of that had mattered to me until now. When I first crossed over, I thought I'd be a protagonist, slaying enemies and rising to the top. Instead, I spent 2.5 years waiting for a system that never came, stuck with a martial arts talent that was absolute trash. The only thing that kept me going was my family. I was a genuine, rich second generation. My parents owned a company worth hundreds of billions that spanned the entire province. My father was a high-level martial king, and my mother was a high-level martial master. In this world, the ranks were clear: apprentice, martial artist, master, king, grandmaster, great-grandmaster, martial emperor, and martial god. As the son of 2 powerful experts, I was a certified embarrassment. My parents had pumped me full of rare herbs, expensive medicinal baths, and top-tier supplements. If you spent that much money on a pile of pig meat, the pig would have become a martial master by now. But me? After spending hundreds of millions, my vitality score was a pathetic 2.5. I was barely an apprentice. The minimum score to get into a standard university was 7.0. With my score, I'd be lucky to get into a bottom-tier vocational school that accepted anything with a heartbeat. My parents had hired every alchemist and expert they knew, but nothing worked. With the global martial arts exam just months away, I had given up. I was ready to just go home and inherit the family business. But now, the system was here. Pay to win? I laughed internally. If there was one thing I wasn't short on, it was money. Top up, I shouted in my mind. Give me everything you've got. 1 million yuan deducted, the system chimed. Congratulations, host. You have received the newbie gift pack. I was so excited that I didn't realize I had actually twitched in my seat. My homeroom teacher, Mr. Lee, was standing at the front of the room, his face turning dark as he stared at me. Subai, he barked. What are you doing? This is a classroom, not your living room. He looked at me with a mix of frustration and pity. The exam is months away. Your parents have exhausted themselves for you, and this is how you repay them? Sure, you can go back and inherit billions, but what happens when your parents are gone? How will you protect that wealth? This world belongs to the strong. Do you really want your family's legacy to die in your hands? Mr. Lee was a low-level martial king. He wasn't afraid of offending a rich kid like me. He had been the one to let me into this elite class as a favor, even though the average vitality here was 10.0, with some geniuses already reaching 60 and becoming intermediate martial artists. He had watched me give up and turn into a slacker who spent his nights partying. He wanted to give me one last wake-up call. I snapped out of my daze and stood up. I bowed slightly to him. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee. I got distracted, but I've made up my mind. My goal is to get into the top universities in the country. The classroom went silent. A few students started shaking, trying to hold back their laughter. But one person didn't bother hiding it. Ha ha! A loud, mocking laugh erupted from the front row. Subai, did you sleep too long? Are you still dreaming? I looked at the speaker. It was Su Fei. He looked like a gentleman, but he was a snake. His family's business competed with mine, and they always lost to my parents. Naturally, he took every chance he could to kick me. A dog's mouth never utters ivory. I replied calmly, basically calling him a mutt. Su Fei blinked, his smile faltering as he tried to process the insult. Beside him, a girl leaned in to whisper the meaning. One of his lackeys leaned in to translate for him. Brother Fei, he just called you a dog. The classroom erupted. Several students couldn't hold back their laughter, snorting loudly. Su Fei's face turned a violent shade of purple. You son of a bitch. Who do you think you're calling a dog? I leaned back, my expression casual. I'm calling out whoever decides to sit in the seat. You. Su Fei lunged forward, but he stopped himself. He remembered my sharp tongue from the past few years. He had never won a verbal sparring match with me. Besides, Mr. Li was there. Li was still standing right there. Su Fei took a deep breath, a malicious glint entering his eyes. Fine, Subai. You said your goal is a top-tier university, right? That means you must be pretty strong. It just so happens the awakening ceremony is the day after tomorrow. How about we have a little duel to celebrate? He plastered a fake, mocking smile on his face. Our great young master Su is headed for the top of the world. Surely he wouldn't mind giving a lowly student like me some pointers? Right, everyone? His cronies immediately chimed in. Yeah, you wouldn't refuse, would you? Or are you just a coward? In the past, I might have ignored them to avoid the public humiliation. But things were different now. I had the pay-to-win system. As long as I spent money, I got stronger, and money was the one thing I had in abundance. Crushing Su Fei would be like stepping on an ant. I won't refuse, I said, my voice cutting through the noise. But a simple duel is boring. Let's make it interesting. Let's place a bet. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, glowing pill. I heard your family recently acquired a Martial King level breakthrough pill. It's worth a fortune. I'll bet this marrow cleansing pill against it. Do you have the guts, young Master Su? The room went dead silent. A marrow cleansing pill was a grade 5 treasure. It could strip away impurities and transform a mediocre talent into a genius overnight. It was worth hundreds of millions, and even then, you couldn't find one on the open market. In comparison, his breakthrough pill was only grade 3. Even though it helped a martial master reach the Martial King realm with an 80% success rate, its value was still lower than mine. Su Fei looked like he'd been slapped. What? You're betting a marrow cleansing pill? He burst into a manic laugh. Ha ha. If you want to give me a treasure like that, I'll gladly take it. Mr. Li, please witness this. I don't want him backing out when he loses. Mr. Li stepped forward, his brow furrowed. Subai, are you sure? Su Fei is already a primary martial artist with a vitality of 23. You. Well, everyone knows your level. He was trying to give me an out. To him, me beating Su Fei was as likely as a pig flying. It was impossible, but I didn't blink. It's settled, teacher, I said, tossing the pill to him. Hold on to this for us. I don't want anyone forgetting the deal later. As a transmigrator with a system, if I couldn't beat a low-level student, I might as well jump off a bridge. The moment the final bell rang, I bolted home. I retreated to my room in our massive luxury villa, locking the door and ignoring the beautiful maid who had prepared a 5-course dinner. I needed to see my status. A holographic screen shimmered in front of my eyes. Pay-to-win system. Name. Subai. Talent. F. Your level of waste is a once-in-a-millennium phenomenon. Realm. Trainee. 2.5 vitality. Cultivation method. Eternal spring art. Balance. 0. Shop. Locked. Inventory. 1x newbie gift pack. I ignored the insult about my F-rank talent. My hands shook. 2.5 years of waiting, and the system was finally here. System, do you have any idea how long I've waited for you? It has been a long wait. A voice echoed in my head, sounding strangely smug. Considering how many battles you fought every night, you probably would have died of exhaustion if I waited any longer. I coughed, feeling a bit embarrassed. Hey, it was just late-night FPS games. Don't make it sound weird. I looked at the 1 million credit deduction on my phone. The system had charged me a fortune just to unlock the free gift pack. 1 million could feed a normal family for a lifetime. But in this world, strength was the only currency that mattered. I tapped the icon. Don't let me down. Congratulations. You have opened the newbie gift pack. Rewards. Talent upgraded to A rank. Special top-tier fire talent. Realm upgraded to primary martial artist. New cultivation method. Dao enlightenment script. Battle technique. Mandarin duck slash. A surge of heat exploded in my chest. I felt my bones cracking and reforming, my veins widening as pure energy flooded my system. The screen refreshed instantly. Name, Su Bai. Talent, A+. Realm, primary martial artist, vitality, 10. Cultivation, Dao enlightenment script. I stared at the A-rank talent notification. I had really done it. No wonder my progress had been so slow before. Trying to cultivate with F-rank talent was like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. But now, the hole was gone. The game had officially changed. I felt the power coursing through me. Before this, my cultivation was a joke. I would try to absorb energy, but only a pathetic 0.01% would actually stick. The rest of it couldn't be absorbed by my body at all, simply drifting away into the air and wasting my time. I realized then that the 1 million credits I just spent was the best investment of my life. This cheat system was incredible. I couldn't help but smile. If I had bound this system earlier, I wouldn't have wasted so much. I thought about the billions I had squandered over the years on useless things. If I had pumped all that money into this system, how strong would I be right now? I had spent years being looked down on as trash. Now that I finally had talent, I knew exactly what I had to do. I needed to cultivate. I wanted to know what it felt like to be a genius. I sat cross-legged on my bed and began to circulate the Changchun script. Over the last few thousand years, humanity had developed countless cultivation methods. The Changchun script was one of the modern ones. While ancient methods existed, they had been refined over a millennium to create much more powerful techniques. But these methods had one thing in common. They were expensive. Even a basic technique that only boosted your strength by 10% would cost over 1 million credits on the open market. And that was just for the lowest yellow rank stuff. Cultivation ranks were divided into yellow, black, earth, and heaven. My Changchun script was an earth rank method. My father had spent a fortune and used every connection he had to get it for me. In the outside world, a manual like this would start at 100 million credits, and even then, nobody would sell it. Resources were always kept in the hands of the elite. For normal people, the only way to get a high-level manual was through the martial exams. If you got into a good university, you were given a manual. Anything better had to be earned with military merit on the front lines. Money alone couldn't buy it. As I activated the script, a warm current of spiritual energy began to flow through my limbs. It felt so good, I almost groaned out loud. I had never felt anything like this before. No wonder people were obsessed with martial arts. This feeling was better than any luxury I had ever bought. My new A-rank talent was already showing its worth. In the past, it took me several breaths just to complete one cycle of energy. Now, I finished a full cycle in half a breath. Back then, my vitality barely budged. Now, I could feel myself getting stronger with every second. I quickly pulled up my system panel to check the numbers. My realm showed primary martial artist, and my vitality sat at 10.01. I wasn't imagining it. I had gained exactly 0.01 vitality in just one cycle. The system's upgrade felt completely natural, as if I had earned that strength through years of hard work. I could feel the difference in my muscles. Even a 0.01 increase meant I could probably pack a few more kilograms of force into my punches. In this world, a person with a vitality of 1 was a standard trainee, capable of punching with about 100 kilograms of force. For every point of vitality, you added 10 kilograms of power. A primary martial artist like me, with 10 vitality, should have a base punch of 200 kilograms. Intermediate was 20 vitality, and a senior martial artist reached 50. By the time someone reached the peak of the martial artist rank at 100 vitality, they could strike with 1,000 kilograms of force. Of course, these were just base numbers. Real combat was different. A genius could use special techniques and talents to multiply their power. A primary martial artist with a good technique could fight an intermediate one to a standstill. If they had a special talent on top of that, they could easily crush people ranks above them. That was why Su Fei felt so confident in mocking me. He had a special talent. Even though his was the lowest rank, it still made him better than any normal person. Special talents only appeared in 1 out of every few thousand people. In a whole school, you might only find 10 students who had one. But I was different now. Thanks to my A-rank talent, my body was absorbing energy even when I wasn't actively trying. I glanced at the system panel again and froze. My eyes widened as I looked at the talent section. It said, Talent, A+. That little plus sign changed everything. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. Holy crap, I whispered. I thought the gift pack just gave me a static A-rank talent, but that plus sign meant it could be upgraded even further. I had completely underestimated this system. If A-rank felt this good, what would S-rank be like? In the last 1,000 years, S-rank talents were incredibly rare. Every year, out of all the millions of students taking the global martial exams, only a few dozen would be found with SSS rank talent. Last year in Jiang province, we had hundreds of S ranks, only 1 SS rank, and absolutely 0 SSS ranks. I realized I was holding a ticket to the very top. My city only had 2 S-rank talents in its entire history. In a province of hundreds of millions, only 2 people awakened at that level every year. The odds were suffocatingly low. Then there were special talents. Nobody knew how they worked. They could appear in a total loser or a once-in-a-century genius. Even if a weakling got one, they could fight people way above their level. These talents weren't just for fighting, either. Some became master alchemists, blacksmiths, or beast tamers. For thousands of years, humans had tried to study these powers, but they remained a mystery. One thing was certain, though. Once you were born with a certain talent rank, you were stuck with it for life. Parents would spend their entire life savings just to bump their child up a single rank, and it never worked. I stared at that plus sign, my finger trembling. I took a deep breath and tapped it. A message popped up instantly. Insufficient balance. Talent upgrade unavailable. I frowned. Then I saw the price tag. The system wanted 100 million to upgrade me to S rank. I froze. The starter pack was 1 million, but a single upgrade cost 100 million? Luckily, my cheapskate father was worth 100 billion. If I were anyone else, I'd never be able to afford this system. The system must have sensed my hesitation. A new notification flashed across my vision. Dear host, it has been 3 hours since your last recharge. We are offering a special return gift pack. Recharge 100 million now to upgrade to S rank and reach the ultimate martial artist realm. I nearly choked. Was this system run by a corporate scammer? I groaned, but my hand moved on its own. I hit confirm. My phone buzzed with a bank alert. The money was gone, but a rush of power surged through my veins. My status panel refreshed. Talent, S rank. Realm, ultimate martial artist. Blood chi, 50. But the plus sign was still there, mocking me. I looked at the next tiers. SS rank cost 300 million. SSS rank was 500 million. And then, there was something else. For 1 billion, I could reach immortal grade. It was a rank beyond SSS, a unique level that shouldn't even exist. I didn't think twice. By the time I was done, I had burned through nearly 2 billion. My personal savings were almost completely drained, leaving me with just a few million for pocket money. This system wasn't just a talent booster. It was a black hole for cash. I had reached the top. I was the only person in the world with immortal grade talent. I sat down and started to meditate, curious to see what this level of power felt like. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon when I opened my eyes. I felt incredible. I checked my stats and gasped. In just one night, I had jumped from a mid-level martial artist to a high-level one. My blood chi had skyrocketed to over 200. Even with immortal talent, that shouldn't have been possible. Then I remembered the other item from the starter pack, the Tao Enlightenment technique. It was an Earth rank cultivation method. In this world, that was a legendary treasure. Combining an immortal talent with an Earth rank technique was like putting a jet engine on a race car. If I faced Su Fei now, I wouldn't even need to throw a punch. I could crush him with one finger. Suddenly, my goals shifted. I had bragged about getting into a top university, and now I could actually do it. There were 3 elite schools in China. First was Beta University, the place with the best resources and teachers. Second was the National Defense University, run by the military for those who wanted to fight on the front lines. Then there was Shanghai University. That place was just weird. It was technically ranked 3rd, but everyone knew its actual strength was number 1 in the country. They didn't care about your rank or your talent. If you met their strange, secret criteria, you were in. If not, even an SSS-ranked genius would be kicked to the curb. Every graduate from Shanghai became a legend. Even the lowest-ranking teachers there were grandmasters. I looked at the calendar. The official talent awakening ceremony was in 2 days. It wasn't just a ceremony, though. It determined who got to compete in the Secret Realm competition. This was a massive event where different provinces fought for resources. Each city would send its top 10 students into a secret realm to hunt monsters for points. Before last night, a loser like me with 2.5 blood chi wouldn't have stood a chance. But everything was different now. I had the talent, I had the technique, and I definitely had the drive. I needed to win that competition. After all, the system was still hungry for money, and I needed to find a way to keep feeding it. Now that I was broke, the system didn't give a damn about me. It sat there, silent and cold. I still hadn't figured out everything it could do yet. There was no instruction manual, so I had to stumble through it on my own. The Mall tab on the interface was still locked tight, so I gave up on that for now. I was officially a pauper. Even if the system had 1,000 other god-tier functions, I could only stand by and watch with empty pockets. Still, looking at my current setup, I wasn't doing too bad. A divine talent paired with a top-tier fire element talent put me ahead of 99.99% of the people on this planet. But the test was tomorrow. Being a high-level martial artist was good, but it wasn't a guaranteed lock for first place. What if some dark horse appeared out of nowhere? I couldn't risk a GG moment. I needed to keep training. If I was going to the global competition, I was going there for the gold. I picked up my phone, called the school, and took a day off to shut myself inside and cultivate. Back at school, my teacher, Mr. Lee, was genuinely worried. He thought I'd finally snapped under the pressure. Yesterday, I was talking crazy about getting into a top-tier university, and today, I was skipping class. 2 of those top 3 schools required you to be at least a high-level martial artist just to apply. My blood chi was 2.5. At best, I could maybe scrape into a standard undergraduate program if I worked hard. But the top 3? That was a fairy tale. Even Shanghai University, which didn't care about rank, only took maybe 1 or 2 students a year. The odds of them picking me were 0. Mr. Lee actually muttered to himself that if I got into any of those 3, he'd eat his desk right then and there. I didn't care about desks. I was too busy feeling the power surge through me. By the time I finished my session the next morning, I was just 1 step away from becoming a martial master. With a divine talent and an earth-grade cultivation technique, I could feel myself getting stronger every single second. I finally understood why those old cultivators stayed in seclusion for years. It was addictive. Today was the school test. My blood chi was sitting at over 400. I figured that would be enough. I was agonizingly close to the 500 mark, which would officially make me a martial master. Going from a loser to a master in 3 days was a feat that would break the history books. Nobody would believe it. Before I left for school, I checked the only combat technique I had, the Yuan Yang Slash. As expected, it was a high-level skill, heaven grade, low rank. Techniques were split into 5 levels of mastery: initial, small success, great success, perfection, and micro-control. Usually, it took months just to reach the initial stage of a heaven grade technique. But for me, that wasn't a problem. I discovered another system feature, pay-to-win training. To jump straight to micro-control for a heaven grade skill cost about 100 million yuan. My remaining few million only got me to great success, leaving me completely bankrupt again. But as the knowledge of the Yuan Yang Slash flooded my brain, I knew it was worth every cent. Most people would kill to master a heaven grade technique for a few million. I checked my phone and saw several missed calls from my parents. I'd been so deep in cultivation I hadn't even noticed. I stared at the dial screen for a long time, my thumb hovering over the button. Then, I put it away. Today was the test. I'd show the world my high-level martial artist strength first. It would be better to call them with good news after I shocked everyone. I walked out of the villa, unaware that every move I made was being watched. The maid in the house wasn't just a servant. She was a bodyguard hired by my parents. They had plenty of enemies in the business world who weren't above targeting their son. My old man had spent a fortune to hire her. She was a primary martial king. If people knew a failure like me had a martial king protecting him, they'd lose their minds. Once I was gone, she pulled out a phone and reported everything. She detailed my behavior over the last 2 days, the school drama, and even my bet with Su Fei. Then, she vanished into the shadows, tailing me toward the school. Brother Bai, why weren't you in class yesterday? At the school gates, a chubby guy was waving his arms around frantically. This was Wang Fuguei, my childhood best friend. Our dads were like brothers, so we'd grown up together. There were 3 of us in our little group, but I'd always been the leader because I had the most schemes. Fuguei was the youngest of the trio. His family was filthy rich, just like his name suggested. The awakening ceremony is today. Fuguei continued, looking more upset than I was. Su Fei was acting so arrogant yesterday because you weren't here. I swear, I wanted to punch that smug look right off his face. He paused, looking at me with genuine concern. Are you really going to fight him? He's already a primary martial artist. I heard he even started learning an earth grade technique. Even if you awaken a decent talent today, you won't be able to beat him right away. Let's just forget the bet. It's just a marrow cleansing pill. Treat it like you're feeding a dog. I stayed silent for a moment. Then, I let a tiny sliver of my high-level martial artist aura leak out. Fuguei froze. The words died in his throat. He looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. He wasn't a weakling himself. He was a primary martial artist with a blood chi of around 17. But the pressure coming off me made his hair stand on end. Even the mid-level students in our class didn't make him feel this much danger. Brother Bai, are you a high-level martial artist? His voice trembled. He couldn't wrap his head around it. I was the guy with 2.5 blood chi. How could I suddenly be a high-level martial artist? There were only 2 options. Either I'd achieve the impossible in a few days, or I'd been hiding my true power for years. Fuguei chose to believe the latter. The alternative was just too insane. He looked at me with newfound awe, wondering how I'd managed to endure all those years of insults while hiding such terrifying strength. I watched Wang Fuguei struggle to process the reality of my strength. In his eyes, I was the ultimate master of disguise. He clearly thought I'd been playing the role of a lazy, rich second-generation heir for years just to hide my true character. He looked at me with a mix of awe and slight resentment. I knew it, Fuguei whispered, his eyes gleaming. I knew a guy born with heavenly omens couldn't be a talentless loser. But Brother Bai, you're cruel. We agreed to slack off together, and here you are as a high-level martial artist? You've already got 1 foot in Peking University. I just nodded calmly. I had leaked my aura on purpose. Today was the testing ceremony, and my strength was going to come out sooner or later. I wanted to give my friend a heads up so he wouldn't spend the whole day worrying that I was walking into a death trap with my fake 2.5 blood chi. Holy crap, Fuguei muttered, unable to find better words. You've been playing the pig to eat the tiger this whole time. Haha, Su Fei is so screwed. I can't wait to see his face when he realizes he's picking a fight with a high-level martial artist. Inside the classroom, Mr. Lee started announcing the rules for the ceremony. He told us this would be the highest spec test in history. The Provincial Martial Arts Association was even sending experts to help us awaken our hidden talents. Usually, this happened a month before the exams, but this year, the schedule had been pushed up. It was a massive opportunity. The rewards for the top 10 students were 10 times higher than previous years. The future is undecided, Mr. Lee shouted, his voice full of passion. Any one of you could be a dark horse. The classroom erupted. The lower-level students were buzzing with excitement. Even if their current cultivation was low, a high-grade talent awakening could change their lives overnight. Everyone was dreaming of hitting the jackpot and awakening an S-grade talent to soar to the top. Mr. Lee looked at the fired-up crowd with satisfaction. Our class wasn't the strongest, but we had the most spirit. Then, his eyes landed on me. I was sitting there, bored out of my mind. I'd heard enough corporate chicken soup speeches in my past life to last 10 lifetimes. Mr. Lee sighed. He thought I was acting strange because of the pressure. He hoped I could at least awaken a D-grade talent so my parents could use their wealth to push me through, but he knew my history. To him, my 2.5 blood chi meant the chances of a high-grade awakening were basically zero. Nearby, my classmates started whispering about me. What talent do you think Bai Chen will get? One asked. Hard to say, another replied. He's got that marrow-cleansing pill, but he's using it as a bet against Su Fei. If he loses that, he's finished. Su Fei overheard them and sneered loudly. Talent? The guy has a blood chi of 2.5 after 2 years of training. I doubt any decent university will even take him. He talks big about the top 3 schools, but even I struggle to reach those. What's he got? A big mouth and rich parents? I'll tell you this. I'd rather jump off a building than see Bai Chen awaken anything above a D grade. Fuguwei sat next to me, looking at Su Fei like he was watching a circus clown. He wanted to scream the truth, but he held back to keep my secret. He just pulled out his phone and quietly started recording Su Fei's trash talk, grinning like a maniac. He was building a library of evidence for the ultimate humiliation. Soon, the announcement came over the speakers. It was time to head to the field. All right, class, Mr. Lee said, his tone serious. Today we find out who's a dragon and who's a worm. Follow me to the field. Don't wander off, and wait for your name. If you disrupt the ceremony, you'll face criminal charges. Understood. We followed him out to the track. A massive awakening platform had been built in the center. A man stood there holding a crystal ball, wearing a 3-star silver badge on his chest. He was a high-level martial master from the Provincial Association. The school principal, city leaders, and representatives from the Alchemist Association were all lined up in the VIP seats, hoping to scout new geniuses. The ceremony began. A student named Defeiji was the first to go up. He looked terrified and excited all at once. In this world, the moment you touched that crystal, your entire destiny could change in a heartbeat. Defeiji walked up to the platform, looking like a nervous wreck. I could tell he was hoping for a miracle, maybe a shot at a second-tier university if things went well. The martial master didn't waste time. He told the kid to place his hand on the crystal and focus on absorbing the spiritual energy from the environment. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried across the entire field so he wouldn't have to repeat the instructions for every student. Defeiji followed the orders. A faint, weak light flickered inside the crystal. Defeiji, C-grade talent. No special traits. Next, the master announced. The crowd erupted. A C-grade was actually decent for a regular student. It meant he had a real chance at those mid to high level universities. People were whispering about how lucky he was, saying their families would set off fireworks for a week if they got a C. I just shook my head. With my current strength, a C grade looked like a joke, but to these people, it was a golden ticket. The line moved fast. Feng Jie got a D grade. The next kid got an E. Then another C, then a B. The tension was building. Then, the name everyone was waiting for echoed through the speakers. Next, Chu Yoyu, the school goddess. She was already a high-level martial artist. The crowd went wild. People were betting she'd hit at least an A grade, maybe even an S. Some of Su Fei's lackeys started shouting that she was their boss's girlfriend and that everyone should watch their mouths. It made my skin crawl. Before she stepped up, I saw her eyes searching the crowd. She was looking for me. She looked worried, probably thinking about the insane bet I'd made with Su Fei. But with so many people in class too, and me standing in the back with Fuguwei, she couldn't find me. She bit her lip, suppressed her anxiety, and walked onto the stage. The martial master didn't even look up. He was busy recording data, looking bored. He'd seen a dozen kids, and the best so far was a single B grade. He was worried about his own performance metrics. He needed an S or at least a few A grades to look good to his superiors. Then, Chu Yuyu touched the crystal. The world seemed to stop. A violent purple light exploded from the ball, mixed with streaks of shimmering gold. A massive pillar of light shot 100 meters into the sky. The martial master nearly fell off his chair. His jaw dropped. Purple and gold. This is SS grade. The principal didn't wait. He blurred across the stage, instantly appearing at Chu Yoyu's side to protect her. But the phenomenon wasn't over. A high-pitched, crystal-clear phoenix cry tore through the air. A small, glowing bird emerged from her body, spiraling up the pillar of light. It grew larger and larger until a massive phoenix, hundreds of meters wide, circled the sky. The martial master's legs gave out. He had to lean against the platform just to stay upright. Every martial king-level expert in the VIP section moved at once, forming a human shield around her. They were looking at a legend. A phoenix appearing at an awakening? That wasn't just talent. That was a sign from the heavens. The master finally found his voice, though it was trembling. Chuyoyu. SS grade talent. Unknown special trait. Because the phoenix had appeared, the crystal ball couldn't even categorize her special ability. It was too powerful to be measured. Only the top 3 universities in the country would have the tools to figure out what she was truly capable of. The VIPs were already losing their minds. An SS grade was a guaranteed ticket to the top schools. She was a future martial emperor, maybe even a martial deity. The city leaders were already planning how to suck up to the Chu family. "I'm so jealous," one of the old experts muttered. "Old man Chu is going to come out of seclusion just to brag about this. First a brilliant son, now a granddaughter like this? What did he do in his past life to deserve this luck?" "Wait," another official whispered, leaning in. "I heard a rumor. Doesn't this girl have an arranged marriage with that kid from the Su family?" "The Su family kid? You mean the failure?" Someone laughed. "There's no way. A dragon doesn't marry a worm." I stood in the back, watching the chaos. They had no idea. The worm they were talking about was currently stronger than anyone on that stage. Everyone knew the kid from the Su family was a once-in-a-millennium failure. Even with a mountain of family resources, he'd barely scraped together a blood chi value of 2.5. He was a waste of space. But now, everything had changed. Chuyoyu had just awakened an SS grade talent. They were from 2 different worlds now. People in the VIP stands started whispering about their arranged marriage, calling it a joke. A verbal promise from years ago meant nothing now. A dragon doesn't mate with a worm. On the stage, the golden light faded. Chuyoyu opened her eyes, feeling the surge of power in her veins. She had hoped for an A grade, but this was beyond her wildest dreams. She felt a strange, intimate connection to the spiritual energy floating in the air. It felt like family. With just a single thought, she knew she could pull all that energy into her body at once. Before she could even process the change, a swarm of experts surrounded her. The Martial Artist Association reps were shouting, promising her unlimited resources and master-level mentors if she just signed with them. They were fighting like children over a prize. These were powerful martial kings, men as strong as her own father, losing their cool just to get her attention. The principal finally stepped in, pushing the crowd back. He told them to show some dignity. He reminded them that the top 3 universities in the country had already been notified and were on their way. The local scouts didn't stand a chance. The VIPs quieted down, realizing he was right. Chuyoyu was destined for greatness that moved far beyond this city. Down in the square, the students were losing their minds. They had seen a legendary phoenix manifest in the sky. To them, Chuyoyu was now a goddess. Some were jealous, others were heartbroken, knowing she was now completely out of their league. Sufei watched her from the crowd, nodding to himself. She was the only woman worthy of him. Her talent exceeded his expectations, but that only made him want to conquer her more. I stood at the back with Wang Fuguei, watching the spectacle. I wasn't shocked. My own talent was SSS grade, something beyond the divine. Nothing in this world could surprise me anymore. Fuguei, however, looked like he'd seen a ghost. He looked at me, then back at the stage, realizing both of his childhood friends were monsters while he was still just a primary martial artist. He looked miserable, wondering why he was the only one left behind in the trash category. The awakening master on stage was beaming. Having an SS grade student on his watch meant a massive promotion and a huge bonus. He quickly called for the next students. Sufei, C grade talent. Next, A grade talent. Next. The ceremony moved fast. Class 1 finished their turn. Aside from Chuyoyu, they had 1 A grade and a few B grades. Then, it was time for my class, Class 2. Fuguei clenched his fists, praying to the heavens for a miracle so he wouldn't have to hide his face in shame forever. Chuyoyu stepped off the stage. Instead of returning to her class, she started walking toward us. The crowd went wild. The guys in my class started fixing their hair, thinking she was coming for them. Some joked that she was coming for Su-fei. Others laughed, saying there was no way she was coming to see a waste like me. One guy even shouted that he'd eat dirt if she was actually looking for Su-bai. Su-fei stood tall, waiting for her with a smirk, though I could see the flicker of anxiety in his eyes. Fuguwei nudged me with his elbow, grinning like an idiot. He knew exactly who she was looking for. He whispered that the look on Su-fei's face would be priceless once he realized the truth. I raised an eyebrow as my childhood friend and secret fiancé approached. I was curious. She had just become the most sought-after genius in the city. She knew that old me was a failure. Yet, she was still walking straight toward me. I remembered how Chuyoyu used to follow me around like a lost puppy when we were kids. She was always begging me to play with her. Our parents saw how well we got along and decided to arrange a marriage between us right then and there. As we grew up, we both knew about the engagement. Neither of us ever tried to break it. We just let it be, a quiet understanding between us. Fuguwei knew the secret, too. He wasn't jealous, though. He just envied my luck. He used to joke about how much he disliked her when we were toddlers, back when she was just a crying mess. But I was the one who always brought her along to play. The three of us grew up thick as thieves, wearing out the same playground equipment. Nobody expected Chuyoyu to grow up into such a breathtaking beauty. She became the kind of girl who could stop traffic with a single look. On top of that, her martial cultivation skyrocketed. Once we hit high school, we were split up. She went to Class 1, the elite track, while Fuguwei and I ended up in Class 2. Because she was so famous and we were seen as average, we stopped talking to her in public to avoid the gossip. Seeing her walk toward me now, a thought crossed my mind. Was she here to break off the engagement? I'd read enough web novels to know the trope. The loser main character gets a cheat system, the villain mocks him, and the fiancé shows up to dump him. It's the perfect setup for a revenge arc. Honestly, part of me hoped I was wrong. She was perfect in every way. A woman like her was impossible to find twice. Chuyoyu reached the Class 2 section and scanned the crowd, looking for someone. Classmate Chu, who are you looking for? One guy asked, stepping forward eagerly. Just give me a name, I'll find them for you. Yeah, tell us. We'll help, another shouted. They all swarmed her, hoping to make a good impression on the school's new genius. They knew they didn't stand a chance with her, but they wanted to be in her orbit. Chuyoyu looked overwhelmed. She bit her lip, looking incredibly delicate and beautiful, like a creature from another world. Is Su-bai here? She asked softly. The crowd went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. The guys who were just jostling for her attention froze. Wait, who did she say? Someone whispered. Did I hear that right? Su-bai. Then, the explosion happened. The crowd erupted in disbelief. The school waste was being sought out by the SS-grade goddess? People started shouting. One guy reminded everyone about the student who promised to eat dirt if this happened. Su-fei's lackeys looked like they'd been slapped. They couldn't understand why she'd want anything to do with a failure like me. I looked at Su-fei. His eyes were bloodshot with pure, unadulterated rage. Next, Su-fei, the proctor shouted. Su-fei had to leave. He marched up to the stage, channeling all that jealousy into the awakening stone. He glared at the crystal ball, his knuckles white. A faint purple light flickered for a second, then vanished. He looked disappointed for a heartbeat, but then, a burst of flame erupted from his palm. He manipulated the fire with ease, a cruel smirk returning to his face. Su-fei, S-grade talent. Advanced Special Fire Element, the proctor announced. The proctor was thrilled. After an SS grade, an S grade was the cherry on top. His promotion was guaranteed now. He looked at the students like they were bags of money. Su-fei walked off the stage, his confidence restored. He looked at me with cold, calculating eyes. In his mind, I was still the loser with a blood chi of 2.5. He probably thought his S-grade talent gave him the right to crush me in our duel. He knew about the engagement. That's why he hated me so much. He couldn't stand that I, someone he deemed inferior, had the girl he wanted. He thought his talent could bridge the gap between us. He was wrong. Hey, snot-nose, I called out, stepping out from the crowd. Looking for me? I used her old childhood nickname. I hadn't called her that since middle school, but it felt right. Chuyoyu stiffened when she heard it. She turned toward my voice, her eyes softening as they landed on me. "Brother Subai," she whispered. "It's Yoyu's turn to protect you now." I could see the memories flashing in her eyes. I remembered that year in elementary school when she was kidnapped by my parents' business rivals. She'd been locked in a dark, damp room, terrified out of her mind. The police and our parents couldn't find her fast enough. It was me. I used every trick I knew and some gadgets my parents gave me for protection. I had Fugue cause a massive distraction while I sneaked in. I pulled her out of the hands of several professional martial artists. Nobody knew how scared she really was back then, but when I grabbed her hand and ran, I became her entire world. I was the light that pulled her out of the dark. By the time our parents arrived, we were already safe. Those martial artists never saw it coming. Those kidnappers were handled secretly. After that, the incident was buried. Our parents didn't want us growing up in the shadow of a trauma, so they intentionally downplayed everything. Over time, the memory faded into a blur. As a transmigrator, I had no idea. The memories I inherited from the original Subai didn't contain a single trace of that day. If I had known we had this kind of history, I wouldn't have spent a second worrying about a broken engagement. This girl wasn't some cold socialite. She was a pure-hearted childhood friend. Fugue and I had moved on easily, but Chuyoyu never forgot. She never forgot the crushing despair of that dark room or the boy who reached in to pull her out. That was the real reason she never objected to our engagement. Later, when I became known as a once-in-a-century loser, she didn't leave. She just started training harder. She wanted to protect me. It was a classic, cheesy story of a hero saving a beauty, and she had decided to entrust her entire life to me because of it. Even now, having awakened an SS-grade talent, her only thought was that the stronger she became, the better she could protect me. The silence between us stretched. Chuyoyu trembled at the sound of her old nickname. Her eyes clouded with mist. Tears threatened to fall at any moment. She looked so fragile that anyone watching would feel an instinctive urge to protect her. I, on the other hand, was completely thrown off. I just called her snot-nose for a bit of nostalgia. Why was she reacting like I'd proposed? I felt the atmosphere shift instantly. Every guy in the vicinity was suddenly radiating pure killing intent toward me. They were cracking their knuckles and glaring. If I didn't give a damn good explanation for making their goddess cry, I was going to become public enemy number one. Beautiful women really are trouble. My ancestors weren't lying about that. "Brother Bai, this isn't right," Fugue whispered, leaning in close. "Something is very, very wrong. What did you do to Sister Yu? Why is she acting like this?" I was just as confused. I called her a name from 3rd grade, and she turned into a waterfall. How was I supposed to know? I had to fix this, and fast. "Hey, Chuyoyu, don't cry," I said, waving my hands frantically. "I won't call you snot-nose anymore, okay? I promise." She looked at me, taking in my panicked, helpless expression. Suddenly, she let out a small "uff" and burst into a beautiful smile. Seeing me like this seemed to put her at ease. Ever since she heard I challenged Su Fei, she had been worried sick. Combined with my absence from school yesterday, she thought I might have done something desperate. But looking at me now, I seemed perfectly fine. I had let her worry all this time for nothing. She didn't address the nickname. Instead, she gave me a sweet, radiant smile. "Brother Subai, do your best. I believe you'll awaken a great talent." The sudden shift in her mood left me dazed. I could only offer a slight smile and a nod. My mind was a mess. Why did she look like she was about to cry a second ago? She came here in front of everyone just to cheer me on. She wasn't here to break things off at all. In fact, her attitude was beyond friendly. She was genuinely caring for me. She called me Brother Subai. I hadn't heard that in years. With my experience from 2 lifetimes, I realized the truth. This girl had feelings for me all along. Back when I thought I was a cultivation failure, I had intentionally distanced myself from her. She was a genius, and I didn't want to drag her down. I wanted her to focus on her path. It seemed my noble sacrifice hadn't changed her heart at all. She had awakened an SS-grade talent. If I were still the old, useless Subai, we really would have missed our chance. But now, it wasn't too late. Chuyoyu turned and headed back to her class, leaving the crowd in a state of collective shock. It took a few seconds for the noise to explode. "What just happened?" someone yelled. "Can someone explain why the school goddess just went over to cheer for Subai? And that nickname? Am I dreaming? There's no way she knows him like that. Is the rumor true? Are they actually together? No, I can't accept this. Why does it have to be Subai? This hurts more than dying. The guys who were laughing at me earlier were now silent, their hearts shattered by a single smile and a giggle. They didn't dare insult me to my face like Su Fei did. After all, I was still a rich heir with a massive family fortune, but the envy was suffocating. Even the powerful martial masters sitting on the viewing platform were exchanging confused glances. So, one of them muttered, "The rumor about the Chu girl and the Su boy having an engagement. It's actually real?" The martial kings on the platform were whispering among themselves. One of them, a man known as the Dance King, leaned forward with a sharp glint in his eyes. He confirmed that the rumors were true. It looked like the engagement between me and Chu Yoyu wasn't just a business deal. We actually liked each other. One of the older masters sighed, shaking his head. He called it a tragedy. He couldn't believe a beautiful flower like Chu Yoyu was being planted in the cow dung of the Su family. He joked about wishing he had a fiancée like that back in his day. The others immediately started teasing him, threatening to tell his wife if he didn't pay them hush money. But not everyone was laughing. A cold, dissenting voice cut through the humor. One master pointed out that Chu Yoyu was now an SS-grade genius. I, on the other hand, wasn't even a primary martial artist. In his eyes, I was just a waste of space who would hold her back. The others went silent. They couldn't argue. In this world, strength was everything. Since Chu Yoyu had awakened such a high talent, we were effectively living in two different worlds. Next, Wang Fugui, the proctor shouted. It was my best friend's turn. Su Fei had already stepped down from the stage. He didn't even bother glancing my way this time. To him, I was already a dead man. Now that he had an S-grade talent, his perspective had shifted. He felt that a loser like me, who probably wouldn't even hit D-grade, wasn't worth his energy. He saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone for his future glory. Fugui was shaking. He looked at me, his eyes wide with terror. He begged me to pray for him. He said that since Chu Yoyu and I were both monsters, he couldn't afford to slack off. If he failed now, he'd never be able to keep up with us. Just go, I said, giving him a pat on the shoulder. Believe in yourself. I wasn't actually worried. My system had reacted the moment Su Fei awakened his talent. A notification had popped up, offering to copy a high-level fire talent for 10 million yuan. That's when I realized my system could replicate the special talents of others. When I looked at Fugui, a similar prompt appeared. It wasn't a high-level talent, but it was something much rarer. Fugui walked up to the stage like he was heading to his execution. He stared at the awakening sphere and muttered a prayer. He literally offered to trade 100 years of Su Fei's life for a top-tier talent. The sphere flickered with a faint purple light. Fugui's face lit up. He thought Su Fei's sacrifice had worked. An S-grade talent was already more than he hoped for. But then, the purple light intensified. A streak of brilliant gold flashed through the crystal. Suddenly, the world went quiet. Within a 1,000-meter radius of the school, every animal stopped moving. They all turned their heads toward the awakening stage. Inside the school, pets and stray animals let out a synchronized, strange cry. It sounded like they were welcoming a king. The martial kings on the platform bolted upright. Their chairs scraped against the floor as they stared in disbelief. This was more shocking than an SS-grade awakening. A beast tamer, one of them gasped. And it's at least high level. It's a top-tier beast taming talent. Another shouted. Who is this kid? The awakening officer was vibrating with excitement. He knew he hit the jackpot. A top-tier beast tamer was as valuable as an SS-grade combatant, and far rarer. The last person to awaken this talent was now a pillar of humanity, a legend at Peking University. The officer realized his career was made. He could retire on the bonuses from this one student and never deal with his boss again. Wang Fugui, S-grade talent, top-tier beast tamer. The announcement hit the crowd like a missile. Everyone was stunned. Su Fei stood frozen, his face pale. He gripped his fists so hard his nails dug into his palms, drawing blood. He didn't even feel the pain. He kept muttering that it was impossible. He couldn't understand how a fat, primary-level student like Fugui could surpass him. He wanted answers, but nobody was listening to him anymore. Fugui had just changed his destiny. And as for me, I just smiled. Nobody understood the potential of a beast tamer better than I did. I watched Wang Fuguei standing there, muttering to himself with a look of pure joy. He was actually bragging about how he planned to use his top-tier beast-taming talent. He said he finally understood his calling, to hide in the back like a coward while his beasts did all the work. The crowd stared at him, faces twitching. I could tell they wanted to drag him off the stage and beat him. Who told him a top-tier talent was meant for being a professional slacker? The martial kings on the platform had calmed down, but they looked speechless. If the legendary beast tamer at Peking University heard this kid's plan, he'd probably crack Fuguei's skull open just to see what kind of nonsense was inside. Despite the collective facepalming, the envy in the air was thick enough to choke on. An S-grade talent combined with a top-tier special ability? Fuguei was basically a guaranteed future martial emperor, as long as he stayed alive. In this world, a dead genius isn't a genius at all. Principal Chun, who is this student? The representative from the Martial Arts Association asked. He was curious, but he didn't try to recruit him. Everyone knew the 3 elite universities were already on their way. A small city association couldn't hold a giant like Fuguei. They'd have to settle for trying to recruit Su Fei or the A-grade students later. Principal Chen looked at Fuguei, clearly stunned. He knew exactly who the boy was because of me. My reputation as a cultivation waste was famous in Tianhai City. When your parents are worth hundreds of billions and you can't even break through the basics, people talk. My parents' friends had even suggested they try for a second child since I was such a lost cause. Without protection, I would have been a lamb in a wolf den. That's Wang Fuguei, Principal Chen explained. He's the son of the Wang family, currently a primary martial artist. The officials nodded, realizing he had inherited his father's talent. The Wang family's rise was now inevitable. Fuguei hopped off the stage and skipped back to my side, his head held high. He looked like a peacock. Brother Bai, I didn't embarrass you or sister you, did I? S-grade. Top-tier talent. I never thought I'd see the day. I covered my face with my hand and shook my head. I wondered how I ended up being friends with this show-off. Everyone was staring at us. I reached out and gave him a sharp knock on the head. All right, I know you're amazing. Now shut up for a second. Fuguei just grinned, looking a bit silly, and finally settled down. He was just happy that his S-grade talent meant he wouldn't be left behind by me and you. He was content being my #1 follower. People wondered why a genius like him listened to me, but it went back to when we were kids. I had always been the one with the ideas, the one leading the way. Even now, Fuguei firmly believed I was stronger than him. He thought that even if I had a weak talent, I'd find a way to make it deadly. Of course, he didn't know that without my system, I really would have been a complete loser. E-grade talent. Next, the officer shouted. C-grade talent. Next, the line moved quickly. Then, finally, my name was called. Bai Chun. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The students started whispering. Everyone wanted to see what the legendary waste of Tianhai City would pull off. They knew I had spent 3 years failing, that my blood chi was a pathetic 2.5 last time I checked. They whispered about all the resources I had wasted, money that could have trained a dozen martial masters. To them, I was just a guy who got lucky with his birth. Old Chun, is this that famous failure, Bai Chun? The vice chairman of the Martial Arts Association asked. He looked at me, squinting. He seemed confused because I didn't look like a nervous wreck or a lazy rich kid. I looked calm. Too calm. Yes, that's him, Principal Chen sighed. He didn't have high hopes. He knew my history better than anyone. He figured that even with all the treasures my parents bought me, I might hit Earth-grade talent at best. The awakening officer didn't even look at me. He was bored, already thinking about his retirement bonus from Fuguei's awakening. Put your hand on the sphere, he said, his voice flat. I looked at the awakening ball. In all of human history, only one person had ever awakened a divine-grade talent, the legendary Sword Saint. He was the first and, until now, the only one. I wondered if this machine could even handle what I was about to give it. I reached out and pressed my palm against the cool surface of the sphere. At that exact moment, far away on the road from the capital to Tianhai City, the sky began to change. 3 figures streaked across the sky, moving at speeds that shattered the sound barrier. Their sonic booms echoed like thunder. These were grandmasters, and they weren't hiding their overwhelming pressure. One of them radiated an aura even more terrifying than the others. I never thought you old fossils from Shanghai Academy would care about an SS-grade talent. A burly man shouted over the wind. He looked toward the woman leading the group. Dean Zhu, for you to come out personally? You must be desperate to claim this one. It doesn't matter why I'm here, Dean Zhu replied, her voice ice cold. I suggest you people from National University turn back now. I've already set my sights on this student. A handsome young man flying alongside them chuckled. Dean Zhu, just because you have a Phoenix-type talent doesn't mean this kid belongs in Shanghai. Our National Defense University is a great choice, too. These three represented the top tier of human education, the three great academies. At their level, they weren't just schools, they were the pillars of humanity. I'm taking this student, Dean Zhu stated firmly. She glanced at the two men with undisguised contempt. Even if your vice dean showed up, I wouldn't back down, let alone for two mere grandmasters. The two men fell silent. They knew she wasn't bluffing. She was a martial king, outranking them in both power and status. If she truly wanted the student with the Phoenix talent, they didn't stand a chance. Still, they didn't slow down. Even a 1% chance was worth the trip. Suddenly, the burly man from National University gasped. What? Another one? The other two snapped their heads toward him. The big man looked like he regretted opening his mouth. He could have kept the news to himself and snatched a second genius, but it was too late now. I just got word from my contacts, the burly man muttered, his face tight. In that same location in Tianhai City, another top-tier talent just awakened. An S-grade. Are you joking? The young man asked, stunned. Two top-tier geniuses in the exact same place at the exact same time? That's impossible. It sounds fake, Dean Zhu agreed, her cold eyes flickering. Top-tier talents are rare enough that we only see a few dozen globally every year. To have two appear in one school? I need to verify this. The message came from our internal intelligence, the burly man insisted. They've ordered me to secure this genius at any cost. It has to be real. What kind of talent is it? The young man asked. The first was a Phoenix type, the burly man said, pausing for effect. This new one is a Beastmaster. A top-tier Beastmaster. The air seemed to freeze. A Beastmaster talent was more than just a personal power-up. It was a strategic asset for the entire human race. If this was true, it was the best news the country had received in years. Without another word, all three of them pushed their speed to the absolute limit. Back at the school, I had no idea these powerhouses were racing toward me. I didn't know they were coming for Fuguwei and the others. And they certainly didn't know what they were about to witness when they arrived. I kept my palm pressed against the awakening sphere. I followed the instructions, reaching out with my mind to feel the spiritual energy drifting in the air. In that heartbeat, the world went silent. Birds froze mid-flight. The wind stopped blowing. For miles in every direction, every animal, from stray dogs to hidden predators, dropped to the ground, bowing their heads in silence. It was as if they were welcoming a new god. Then, the sphere exploded. A pillar of 7-colored light erupted from the ball, punching through the clouds and piercing the heavens. The shockwave was so massive that people across half the province turned their heads toward Tianhai City, their mouths hanging open in shock. But that was just the beginning. As the golden pillar stabilized, shadows began to swirl around it. From the corners of the earth, the phantoms of legendary creatures manifested. The azure dragon, the phoenix, the qilin, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise. Beasts that only existed in myths, lined up in the sky. They circled the rainbow pillar, soaring toward the stars. This can't be real, someone on the playground whispered. Even the kings of the natural world, like tigers and lions, could only hover in the lower air, bowing their heads in worship. The sky was crowded with thousands of creatures, many of which no human had ever seen before. Then came a sharp crack. I looked down. The awakening sphere, a device built to measure the greatest talents in history, couldn't handle the pressure. It shattered into dust beneath my hand. The visions didn't fade. Instead, they grew more vivid. The cries of dragons and the songs of phoenixes echoed through the 9 heavens, vibrating in the chests of everyone present. Another burst of blinding light forced everyone to close their eyes. When I finally opened mine, the wind was blowing again. The sky was clear. The phantoms were gone. If it weren't for the pile of glass at my feet, I would have thought I'd hallucinated the whole thing. In a secluded mountain range far from the city, an old man who had been in meditation for years suddenly opened his eyes. He smashed a boulder with a single punch and grabbed his phone. Tianhai City, he barked into the receiver. A Saint-grade talent has just appeared. Find out who it is. Now. He hung up, looking toward the horizon with a grim expression. The appearance of a Saint-grade talent meant the world was about to change. Peace was over. The legends were coming true, and it all started right here in my hands. The old man in the mountains stared at his phone, his mind racing. A small city like this shouldn't be producing visions of this scale. To him, it meant one thing. This place was a hidden land of fortune. He didn't waste a second and dialed another number. "Who is this?" a voice answered. "I'm your father," the old man snapped. "Dad? You're out of seclusion? Did you finally break through to the next realm?" The man on the other end sounded ecstatic. "Shut up. Do I need to report my schedule to you?" The old man didn't have time for small talk. "Listen to me. Take your precious son, Lin Shun, and get him to Tianhai City immediately. Transfer him today. I don't care how you do it. Just make sure he builds a relationship with the person who caused that vision." "But Dad," the voice hesitated. "The national exams are only a few months away. Moving Lin Shun now seems a bit reckless, doesn't it?" "Am I your father, or are you mine?" the old man roared. "Get him back here now. I'm coming over personally. Just do it." He hung up, leaving Gu Zhonghai staring at his phone in silence. Gu Zhonghai sighed, rubbing his temples. His father had just finished years of meditation, and the first thing he did was cause a scene. But then, he looked toward the horizon, toward the fading light of the visions. He realized his father wasn't crazy. Something world-changing had just happened in Tianhai City. Back at the school, the silence was deafening. The clouds above were still pierced by a massive hole where the light had punched through. It took a long time before anyone dared to breathe, let alone speak. "A rainbow pillar of light." Someone whispered. "What kind of talent is that?" "I've seen videos of SSS Great Awakenings," another student muttered, their voice trembling. "They usually show golden light. Last year's top 10 genius only raised a pillar a few meters high. But this was thousands of meters. It broke the sky. The 100 beasts bowing, the divine beast appearing, and it all happened to one person. Wait, isn't that by Chun? The guy everyone said was a loser with a blood chi of 2.5. Don't call him a loser anymore. He was already out of our league, but now? He's a god." In a dark corner of the playground, Su Fei's fists were clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. His eyes were bloodshot, filled with a mixture of murderous intent and pure, unadulterated madness. His lackeys, who usually stood tall beside him, were now backing away like frightened rats. They had spent months mocking me alongside Su Fei. Now that I had awakened a talent that dwarfed theirs, they were terrified. Do you think it's too late to apologize?" one of them whispered. They looked at each other, realizing their lives had just flipped upside down. Suddenly, a sharp whistling sound cut through the air. 3 figures descended from the sky, landing perfectly on the stage. The students gasped. To fly, a martial artist had to be at least at the grandmaster level. These were representatives from the top 3 universities in the country. The woman leading them released a sliver of her aura, and I felt the air grow heavy. She was at least a great grandmaster, if not higher. The school officials, including several martial kings, scrambled to their feet to greet them. "What happened here?" the woman asked. Her voice was ice-cold, carrying the weight of a martial emperor. The students nearby struggled to breathe under the pressure. The school principal stepped forward, his voice shaking as he described the scene: the divine beasts, the rainbow pillar, and the shattering of the awakening sphere. The 3 recruiters looked at the shards of glass at my feet and then back at me. Their expressions shifted from curiosity to pure shock. The descriptions sounded like the legends of old. Only this was even more powerful. The handsome young man from the National Defense University was the first to move. He stepped right up to me. "I'm from National Defense. We're offering you immediate, special admission. Are you interested?" I didn't answer right away. He leaned in closer. "Don't worry about the details. You'll get the best treatment, and we'll assign a martial emperor to be your personal mentor. What do you say?" "Don't listen to him," The large, muscular man from Peking University pushed his way forward. Everyone knows national defense is too strict. Their resources are tied up in the military, and their mortality rate is high. Come to Peking instead. I'll give you 100 million yuan as a signing bonus right now. All resources will be yours, and you can pick any beautiful martial emperor mentor you want. I'll issue the admission letter this second. The handsome recruiter turned on him, his eyes flashing. Xiongdiyu, what is your problem? You're bad-mouthing us right to my face? He turned back to me. Student, if you come to national defense, I guarantee you'll start with the rank of major. Xiongdiyu gasped. A major rank? Li Weizhao, you're insane. You don't have the authority to promise that. Li Weizhao smirked. I just checked with my superior. The vice dean said to get him at any cost. You might as well give up. Xiongdiyu froze for a second, then pulled out his phone. Wait, don't agree to anything yet. I'm calling my dean. Whatever they offer, we'll double it. While the two men were arguing over me, the woman, Dean Zhu, ignored the chaos. She walked straight past me toward a girl standing nearby, Chu Yoyu. She looked at the girl, sensing an aura that perfectly matched her own. To her, my SSS-grade talent didn't matter. She didn't care about the old man's orders to recruit the genius. She only cared about finding a successor. Young lady, Dean Zhu said, her cold expression softening just a fraction. I am the vice dean of Shanghai University, a martial emperor. I see a special talent in you that mirrors my own. I believe this is fate. Would you like to be my disciple? The surrounding students nearly fainted. A vice dean of a top university was personally asking to mentor a student? The world had truly gone mad today. The crowd gasped, and a few people even covered their mouths in shock. A martial emperor was standing right in front of us. In our city of Tianhai, the highest-ranking official was the mayor, and he was only a grandmaster. Most people here would be lucky to see a grandmaster once in their lives. Seeing a martial emperor was a once-in-a-lifetime event. These were the elite protectors of humanity, usually stationed on alien battlefields to stop invasions. Losing even one would be a devastating blow to the human race. Chu Yu stood there, frozen. The vice dean of Shanghai University wanted her as a disciple. It was a dream come true, a golden ticket that anyone would kill for. All she had to do was nod. But as she looked at the beautiful woman in front of her, she hesitated. She felt a strange, familiar connection to the woman's aura, but her eyes kept drifting back to me. She didn't want us to be separated. Even if it meant turning down a martial emperor, she couldn't bring herself to leave my side. She opened her mouth to speak, but Dean Zhu Tsai cut her off before she could say a word. You're worried about being in the same school as him, aren't you? Zhu Tsai asked. Chu Yu didn't deny it. She just looked down, confirming the dean's suspicion. Zhu Tsai sighed and rubbed her temples. She couldn't believe she had found such a sentimental disciple. Still, she decided that if she wanted the girl, she might as well recruit the boy too. He met the basic requirements, anyway. Wait here, Zhu Tsai said. I'll be right back. She walked over to where I was standing. The recruiters from Beta and National Defense were still shouting at each other, trying to win me over. Zhu Tsai didn't bother with pleasantries. She didn't even introduce herself. Student, you meet the criteria for Shanghai University, she said, her voice cold and arrogant. Do you want to join us? It wasn't an invitation. It sounded like a command. I looked at her and felt a wave of annoyance. I had been holding out for Shanghai because I wanted freedom, but this woman's attitude was unbearable. Did everyone at that school act like this? My respect for Shanghai University hit rock bottom in an instant. I didn't answer right away, which clearly bothered her. She frowned, her expression turning even colder. Well, are you joining or not? I have things to do, she snapped. She was only here because of Chu Yoyu, and she made sure I knew it. My face went cold. I looked her straight in the eyes. Do you think a little too highly of yourself? I asked. Zhu Tsai stiffened. She looked like she was about to explode. What did you just say? I said, look at yourself. I replied, my voice sharp. You're here to recruit me. I'm not begging you for a spot. Do you think the world stops turning without you or your school? You might have a high rank now, but don't forget the saying, 30 years east, 30 years west. One day, you'll be the one looking up at me. As for Shanghai University, I'm not interested. The entire area went silent. The students looked at me like I was a dead man. A lowly student had just scolded a 7th-tier martial emperor. Zhu Tsai stared at me in pure disbelief. She couldn't process that someone like me would dare to speak to her that way. I didn't wait for her to recover. I turned my back on her and looked at Xiong Diyu, the recruiter from Beida. Xiong, is your offer still on the table? I asked. I needed freedom, and I needed resources. My family was wealthy, but most of their billions were tied up in fixed assets. I needed liquid cash to fuel my system and upgrade my power. Beida offered the best scholarship and the most autonomy. Going to national defense would mean too many rules, and Shanha was now out of the question. Xiong Diyu's eyes lit up. He had seen me stand my ground against a martial emperor and loved my backbone. Of course, he shouted, grinning ear to ear. The deal stands. Whatever you need, Beida will provide. Xiong Diyu looked like he'd just won the lottery. He knew he was getting a massive bargain. Zhu Tsai, on the other hand, looked like she had swallowed a live grenade. She was the type of woman who was used to being the center of the universe, and I had just shattered her ego. None of the recruiters took my final words as a joke. A divine-grade talent wasn't just a title, it was a promise of future godhood. They knew that one day, my words about 30 years east, 30 years west, would become a reality. Li Weizhao from National Defense University sighed and gave up. He knew his school's strict rules and military discipline would never appeal to a genius who craved freedom. Just as I was about to shake hands with Xiong Diyu, Zhu Tsai panicked. She realized that if I went to Beida, the little disciple she had her eye on would follow me there. More importantly, she felt a strange connection between our talents. She sensed that I might be the key to her breaking through her own cultivation bottleneck. No, you can't go to Beida, she shouted. Even now, her voice carried that annoying, commanding tone that made my skin crawl. Dean Zhu, what is the meaning of this? Xiong Diyu snapped, his brow furrowing in anger. Our school wants him, she insisted. Whatever Beida offered, we will match it. She actually looked confident. She honestly believed that after insulting me, she could just throw money at the problem and I'd come crawling back. I looked her dead in the eye. Are you mentally ill? I asked flatly. I told you I don't care about your invitation. Even if you begged me on your knees, I wouldn't go. Leave. I'm done with you. I turned back to Xiong Diyu. Brother Xiong, let's sign. Suddenly, the air whistled. A powerful presence descended from the sky. We all looked up to see a kind-looking old man hovering above us. He scanned the area, his eyes brightening when he spotted a familiar face. Dean Zhu? You're here too? The old man asked as he landed softly beside us. Do you know who caused that vision earlier? The 3 recruiters immediately froze. They bowed deeply, their voices filled with genuine respect. Old Dean. This was the legendary former head of Shanha University. He was a 7th-tier martial emperor, a man who had retired to travel the world and only stepped in for the most critical matters. Compared to him, Zhu Tsai, a mere 2nd-tier martial emperor, was a child. Xiong Diyu stepped forward and quickly explained everything. He didn't sugarcoat it. He told the old dean about my talent and exactly how Zhu Tsai had tried to bully me into submission. As the old dean listened, his face darkened. His eyebrows pulled together until his forehead looked like a crumpled map. He was furious. A divine-grade talent hadn't appeared in thousands of years, not since the great human sovereign who saved our race from extinction. And here was his own vice dean, driving that savior away because of her petty pride. I can't believe this, the old dean muttered, his voice trembling with rage. I leave for a few years and the school turns into this? Who authorized this brat to be a vice dean? I need to go back and clean house. He turned to me, his entire demeanor changing. He bowed his head slightly, showing no arrogance despite his immense power. Student Bai Chun, I am truly sorry, he said sincerely. I never imagined someone from my university would act this way. Please, forgive us. He looked at Zhu Tsai, who was standing there like a statue. What are you waiting for? Apologize to him now. Zhu Tsai bit her lip, her face flushing with humiliation. In her mind, I was still just a primary martial artist. She couldn't wrap her head around a martial emperor apologizing to a student. But under the old dean's icy glare, she had no choice. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The old dean sighed, then looked at me with hopeful eyes. Student Bai Chun, I know we've made a terrible first impression, but I promise you, this will never happen again. We will match all offers and provide even more resources as a personal apology from me. Whether you join us or not, those resources are yours. What do you say? Will you reconsider, Shanha? Xiongdiyu looked devastated. He couldn't compete with a legendary martial emperor personally begging a student. He wanted to speak up, but he knew his place. He just stood there, looking like a kicked puppy. I looked at the old dean. I respected him. He was a hero who had bled on the front lines so people like me could live in peace. But I remembered how Zhu Tsai had looked down on me just minutes ago. Old dean, I have immense respect for you, I said softly. But I've already made my choice. Someone told me I wasn't good enough for your school, and I've decided to believe her. I'm going to beta. Xiongdiyu's eyes lit up again. He couldn't believe I had just turned down a legend. I saw the irony in it all. Before, she wouldn't give me the time of day. Now, I was the one she couldn't afford. The old dean froze for a second, a look of deep regret crossing his face. But he saw the determination in my eyes and knew I wasn't budging. He had lost the greatest genius in history because of one woman's ego. The old dean sighed, a look of genuine regret washing over his face. He didn't try to push me anymore. He knew a talent like me was a once-in-a-century find, and it pained him to see me slip through his fingers. It was a tragedy for Shanghai University, but he was a man of grace. It's a pity, he murmured, loud enough for only us to hear. You should have been one of ours. To think a vice dean would personally drive you away. He shook his head, then looked at me with a kind, weary smile. I won't bother you further, student Bai Chun. But remember, if you ever need help, find this old man. I'll do whatever is within my power to assist you. He didn't feel insulted by my rejection. At his age and rank as a martial emperor, he had seen it all. Only the survival of the human race truly mattered to him now. He turned his back on me, his warm smile instantly vanishing into a mask of cold authority. Vice Dean Zhu, he said, his voice flat. When we return to the academy, report to the dean's office. He will be waiting for you. Zhu Tsai's face went pale. She knew what that meant. In the old dean's eyes, her career was effectively over. She had lost her standing, her future disciples, and likely her position, all because she had tried to crush a nobody like me. She stood there, trembling, as the old dean waved one last time and walked away. Across the field, Chu Yuyu had been watching everything with wide eyes. She had stayed back while the teachers and officials were tense, but now that the pressure had lifted, the entire school erupted. The students were losing their minds. Did I just see that? A martial emperor apologized to Bai Chun, one guy yelled, rubbing his eyes. Am I dreaming? Someone wake me up. That was the former dean of Shanghai University, another girl screamed. A seventh-stage martial emperor. I've seen him on TV. I can't believe he bowed to a student. Chu Yuyu listened to the chatter, her heart racing. She didn't understand the details, but she knew one thing. Her Bai Chun brother was incredible. Principal Chun was beaming. He had been terrified that I would be punished for talking back to a powerhouse. In this world, the strong are not to be insulted. But instead, the powerhouse had apologized, and I had been scouted by Beida on the spot. Not only did I have a God-grade talent, but several other students had awakened S-grade talents today. His school was about to become legendary. Let's congratulate student Bai Chun for his early admission to Beida University, the principal shouted, leading a deafening round of applause. But in the shadows of the crowd, Su Fei was rotting with envy. His S-grade talent, which should have made him the star of the show, was being completely ignored. Even Wang Fugue, my fat friend, had overshadowed him with a unique S-grade talent. Why? Su Fei hissed, his fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. Everything was supposed to be mine. Why did you have to show up? Why is your talent better than mine? He saw Chu Yuyu looking at me with adoration, and something snapped inside him. He knew if he didn't act now, I would grow so fast he'd never touch me again. He masked his murderous intent, forcing his face into a calm, harmless expression. He stepped out of the crowd and walked toward me. Bai Chun, now that the ceremony is over, it's time for our duel, isn't it? Su Fei asked, his voice steady. I looked at him. I had just awakened a God-grade talent, and this guy still thought I was just a primary practitioner. Did he really think I hadn't progressed? Still, he had promised a realm-breaking pill as a stake. That was worth a few minutes of my time. Fine, I said, not missing a beat. Let's get this over with. I was a high-level martial artist now. Crushing a primary martial artist like Su Fei would be like stepping on an ant. We walked toward the sparring stage. The crowd went silent, confused by the sudden challenge. The principal and the recruiters watched with raised eyebrows, but they didn't stop us. They figured it was just young men being competitive. On the stage, Su Fei didn't attack immediately. He stood there, looking at me with a strange mix of pity and hatred. "Bai Chun, I really thought you were a loser," he said, his voice dripping with false sentiment. "Who would have thought you'd awaken a legendary talent? Fate is a cruel joke, but talent isn't everything. Right now, you're still just a primary practitioner." He took a step forward, his aura beginning to flare. He really had no idea what he was walking into. Su Fei kept rambling, his eyes scanning me for a weakness. He thought he was being clever. He thought if he talked enough, I'd lose focus. To him, this was a tactical opening. To me, it was just noise. I actually yawned. I was here for a fight, not a lecture. "Are you going to fight, or are you just here to give a speech?" I interrupted him. "I came for a duel, not a lecture. Hurry up." My indifference pushed him over the edge. His face turned a deep, angry red, his blood boiling with rage. "Fine," he roared. "Since you're in such a hurry, let me send you to hell." He lunged at me. In his hand, a sharp, silver blade glinted in the sun. He wasn't just sparring. He was aiming for my vitals. He wanted me dead. "Su Fei, stop!" Someone screamed from the stands. The crowd panicked. The teachers and recruiters tensed, ready to jump in. They thought I was a defenseless student about to be murdered. But then, the strongest among them suddenly stopped. Zhu Tsai, the martial king protecting me, stayed her hand. She had felt my true power before. She knew what was coming. She actually looked like she pitied him. The other grandmasters also sensed something strange and froze, watching the stage with wide eyes. I watched Su Fei charge toward me. I didn't blink. "Have you ever heard the saying?" I asked quietly. "Villains die because they talk too much. Since you like to talk, let me send you on your way." I raised my hand, channeling the Yuan Yang slash. My aura exploded. The air around me shattered as my high-level martial artist energy flooded the stage. Su Fei's feet skidded to a halt. His face went pale. "No, impossible," he screamed. "You can't be a high-level martial artist. This is a lie." I didn't let him finish. I swung my hand like a sword. A massive wave of golden sword chi swallowed him whole. It didn't just hit him, it tore through his body, shredding his meridians and shattering his cultivation. He was done. He would never be a martial artist again. A blood-curdling scream echoed across the entire campus. Su Fei flew backward off the stage, crashing into the dirt with a heavy thud. He lay there, coughing up thick sprays of blood. The two grandmasters rushed to his side to stop the bleeding. They couldn't let him die on school grounds, but his life as he knew it was over. I didn't feel a shred of guilt. He moved with murderous intent first. This was nothing but self-defense. I looked down at my hand, slightly surprised. The Yuan Yang slash was even more powerful than I thought. That was the strength of a heaven-grade technique. "Bai Chun, are you okay?" It was Chu Yoyu. Her voice was soft, trembling with worry. She looked at me with those big, innocent eyes, her face full of concern. I couldn't help myself. I wanted to tease her. "Why? Were you worried about me?" I asked, a smirk playing on my lips. Who would be worried about you?" She stammered. Her face turned bright red, and she turned around, running away as fast as she could. I watched her go, thinking about how much stronger I needed to get to protect people like her. Principal Chun ran over next, looking frantic. He looked like he wanted to strangle Su Fei himself for risking the life of a god-grade talent. "Bai Chun, don't worry about the consequences," he said quickly. He attacked with a weapon. This was 100% legal self-defense. "I'll handle the paperwork." I thanked him, appreciating the gesture. He was an old hand at school politics, and he knew exactly how to protect his best asset. "Bai Chun," he said, his voice turning serious. "The citywide grand competition is in 2 days. You're the only one in Tianhai City who can truly represent us now. Would you consider participating?" I hesitated. I was already recruited by the best university in the country. My talent was recognized. My path to becoming a martial emperor was already laid out. Did I really need to waste time on a local tournament? I stood there, silent, weighing my options. Principal Chen looked worried. He probably thought I would find the whole thing a nuisance and turn him down. He needed a hook, something to reel me in, but he didn't seem to know what I valued. Suddenly, his expression shifted, and a mysterious smile played on his lips. "Bai Chun, the grand competition is being held in Jiang province this year," he said, watching me closely. "I heard the rewards for first place have been increased significantly. They're about 10 times higher than in previous years." He paused for effect. "Maybe you aren't interested in money, but there is one specific prize I know you'll want. Even I'm jealous of it." I raised an eyebrow. What could a martial king possibly want? More importantly, who told him I wasn't interested in money? I was currently down to my last few million yuan. In my world, that was basically being broke. I couldn't even afford a decent new talent upgrade at that price. "What is it?" I asked, my curiosity finally piqued. Principal Chin struck while the iron was hot. "This year's winner gets 10 spirit stones on top of the usual rewards. I'm sure you know what those are. In all my years, I've only ever managed to get my hands on a few. Spirit stones." I searched my memory for the term. They were legendary items harvested from the depths of secret realms. The conditions for them to form were incredibly rare. You needed a massive concentration of spiritual energy and a spiritual vein. Even then, it took ages for a single stone to manifest. Their primary use was simple but tier 1. They helped a martial artist absorb pure energy. For anyone below the Grandmaster rank, one stone was usually enough to break through a minor realm instantly. For those above Grandmaster, they needed more, but the stones were still vital. Because they were so hard to find, they were usually reserved for martial kings and above. Anyone else who found one either hoarded it for the future or sold it immediately. The market price for a single spirit stone was a staggering 1 billion yuan. And even if you had the money, there was usually no stock available. I didn't care about the level boost. I cared about the price tag. 1 billion yuan per stone. 10 stones meant 10 billion yuan. To me, those weren't just stones. They were 10 top-tier special talents waiting to be bought from my system. "Principal, representing the school is my duty," I said, slapping my chest with sudden enthusiasm. "Say no more. You can count on me to bring home the win." He laughed, clearly pleased with my response. Good, good. I knew you had the right spirit. But I have to say, Bai Chun, you really hidden yourself well. To think you've been a high-level martial artist for 3 years and stayed under the radar. That's some serious patience." He reached toward his hand, and with a flash from his storage ring, he tossed a small, crystalline object toward me. "Since you were scouted by North Capital University, and to make up for the resources the school missed out on giving you, take this. It's a spirit stone I got through some old connections. Consider it yours now." I caught the stone, feeling the cool energy radiating from it. I knew exactly what this was. It was an investment. By accepting it, I was accepting a favor that I'd eventually have to return. But I wasn't going to be timid. If a martial king wanted to give me a billion yuan gift, I wasn't going to say no. I wondered what he would think if he knew the truth. I hadn't been hiding for 3 years. I had reached this level in just 2 days. Most people spent half their lives trying to achieve what I did in 48 hours. It wasn't fair, but then again, the world never was. "Thanks, Principal," I said with a grin. "I'll make sure that first-place trophy ends up in your office." He nodded, looking satisfied. I watched him walk away, then I flicked my wrist. The spirit stone vanished into my own spatial ring. As a rich second-generation heir, a spatial ring was the bare minimum for my wardrobe. I looked back at the school building, feeling the power humming in my veins. The competition was coming, and I was going to be the richest student that Jiang province had ever seen. Everyone thought I was a talentless loser, a nobody who couldn't even reach the level of a basic practitioner. Then, in the blink of an eye, I revealed myself as a high-level martial artist. I had even managed to fool the experts. In the world of martial arts, this kind of revelation was explosive. But honestly, it made more sense this way. How could someone with immortal-grade talent be a failure who couldn't even get into a local college? There was only one explanation in their minds. I had been hiding my true power. I had endured the insults and the mockery for over 2 years. The sheer mental discipline required for that was terrifying to them. Li Weijiao walked over, a bitter smile on his face. "Subai, you really kept us in the dark. You fooled 2 grandmasters. We were worried sick about you. I chuckled, trying to play it off. Thanks for the concern, Brother Xiong, brotherly. But if I told you I wasn't actually lying, would you believe me? Not a chance, they shouted in unison. They had seen what I did to Su Fei. They knew I wasn't the harmless kid I appeared to be. If you believed my innocent act, you were asking for trouble. As I chatted with the grandmasters and the martial king, the rest of the school was in a state of absolute shock. The news spread like wildfire. Su Bai wasn't a weakling. He didn't have a pathetic blood chi of 2.5. He was a high-level martial artist. A peerless genius. How is this possible? One student stammered. I watched him for 2 years. He was a joke. Is this a dream? A dream? Look at Su Fei. Another replied, pointing at the rival who was currently bleeding from every facial orifice. That move Su Bai used. Su Fei might not even survive. I saw a martial master fight once, and Su Bai's strike felt even more powerful than that. It's terrifying. Nearby, Zhu Tsai stood frozen. She looked at the broken mirror pill in her hand and felt a wave of regret wash over her. She had looked down on me. She had dismissed the owner of an immortal-grade talent. Now, the awakening ball was shattered, and the true extent of my special talent was still a mystery. She couldn't get one thought out of her head. I was a high-level martial artist who could strike with the power of a martial master. What was that sword technique? I had used my bare hand as a blade and achieved such devastating results. She regretted how she had treated me. If she had been kinder, if she had invited me to Manhwa Academy with respect instead of arrogance, the outcome would be different. Now, she had likely lost her chance to recruit me. She had waited years for a student like this, a hope to advance her own path, and she had slammed the door shut with her own hands. She had even disappointed the old principal. Maybe I really was wrong, she whispered, a bitter smile touching her lips. In all her years, I was the first person who had truly made her admit a mistake. But it was too late. Congratulations, Su Bai. Mr. Li, my class teacher, beamed as he walked over. I can't believe you hid this from me for so long. I was just hoping you'd get a decent talent, but you gave me a massive surprise instead. He was genuinely happy. As a teacher, there was no greater pride than seeing a student succeed. His class had produced 2 S-grade talents and 1 legendary immortal-grade talent. His career was set. He was going to be promoted for sure. I felt a bit awkward. I really hadn't been hiding my power for years. People thought I was some hidden dragon returning for revenge, but that wasn't it at all. Who has the patience to be bullied for 3 years when they're actually rich and powerful? This wasn't a novel. It's all thanks to your teaching, Mr. Li, I said, leaning into the flattery. I wouldn't be standing here without you. Years of working a corporate 9 to 5 job had made me an expert at sucking up to the boss. Mr. Li glowed with pride. I never noticed how silver-tongued you were, kid. Anyway, here are the stakes from your duel. He handed me 2 medicinal pills. One was my own marrow-cleansing pill. The other was Su Fei's broken mirror pill. I glanced at them, and my system immediately scanned their quality. My eyes widened. The broken mirror pill was high-grade. That was rare. Usually, these pills were low or mid-grade, but a high-grade version gave a 90% chance of breaking through to the Martial King level. Su Fei must have begged and pleaded to get his hands on this. Now he was just my delivery boy. I decided I'd give it to my mom. She was a high-level martial master, and this was exactly what she needed to level up. I realized then that my system had a hidden appraisal function. I could identify any treasure instantly. I was basically a walking cheat code for finding loot. I tucked the pills into my spatial ring, not even bothering to check my own marrow-cleansing pill. I knew my parents only bought the best for me. About Su Fei, Mr. Li's voice turned serious. I'll handle the school and his parents. Don't worry about it. He was disgusted by Su Fei's attempt to kill me in front of everyone. If I hadn't been strong enough to defend myself, I'd be dead. In his mind, Su Fei got exactly what he deserved. Thanks, Mr. Li, I said. I knew he was looking out for me, taking the heat, so I wouldn't have to. But honestly, I wasn't worried. Su Fei was nothing to me now. If he was dead, he was dead. The principal had already promised to handle the fallout. If the Su family wanted revenge, they'd have to go through a lot of powerful people first. Student, would you consider joining National Defense University? A recruiter from National Defense University suddenly stepped in front of me. He was intense, his eyes burning with passion. After you graduate, you'll head to the front lines to fight. You'll kill countless enemies and be worshipped by tens of thousands. Doesn't that excite you? Plus, if you enroll now, we'll give you a divine beast bloodline cub. You can form a contract with it immediately. Don't just think about it, act. Come to national defense. Before I could even process the offer, another voice cut in, louder and more aggressive. National defense? Forget that. Come to Peking University. It was shown to you. He shoved his way forward, looking at me like I was a rare treasure. Student, you've heard of Peking, right? One of the top academies in the country. We have world-class professors, famous masters, and the most beautiful seniors you'll ever meet. Everything is provided. Free food, free housing. We have massive scholarships every year. Any student who can get into national defense can get into Peking. Just name your price. What are you waiting for? Join us. Right then, Xiong Diu and Li Weizhao started a frantic tug-of-war over the last person standing there, Wang Fuguwei. Subai had already been snatched up by Peking. Chu Youyu was being eyed by Dean Zhu. That left Fuguwei as the final high-level talent with a top-tier beast tamer gift. Li Weizhao was desperate to salvage his trip. Xiong Diu, on the other hand, was already feeling smug. He had already secured Subai. Even if he missed out on this last genius, it wouldn't hurt his reputation. Subai alone was enough to earn him a massive promotion. Fuguwei looked at the two powerful men arguing over him and started sweating. He turned to me, his voice trembling. It's no use asking me. Fuguwei stammered, looking at the recruiters. I'm Brother Bai's loyal follower. Wherever he goes, I go. If he tells me to go east, I won't go west. So, I really just want to be with Brother Bai. Li Weizhao's face turned purple. He looked like he wanted to spit blood. I'm done. I'm seriously done with this guy, he cursed under his breath. He realized all these geniuses were tied to Subai. If Subai went to Peking, these two were going to follow him like lost puppies. He had come all this way and gotten absolutely nothing. When he got back to his university, he was going to get chewed out by his superiors. What a waste of time. This place is trash. Li Weizhao stormed off, muttering about how National Defense University had lost its prestige. Xiong Diu, however, was grinning from ear to ear. He stared at Fuguwei, his heart dancing. He hadn't expected these kids to be so close. This was like a meat pie falling from the sky right into his lap. By securing Subai, he had essentially secured a whole team of monsters. Fuguwei let out a long breath once the pressure was off, but then a huge grin broke across his face. He wasn't just happy he got into Peking, he was in awe of me. Brother Bai, you're incredible, he whispered. One move, and you reveal a saint-level talent? You're like a main character in a novel. You even slapped the face of a martial king. This is insane. Principal Chin stepped back onto the awakening stage and grabbed the microphone. His voice boomed through the speakers across the playground. Students, since your talents have just awakened, we are giving you the rest of the day off. Use this time to get familiar with your new powers and start cultivating immediately. Because of this early awakening, the blood chi requirements for every university will be raised. In the coming months, you must work harder than ever. Don't let a lack of blood chi keep you out of a good school. The playground became a sea of mixed emotions. The lucky ones who awakened high-tier talents were celebrating, their futures looking bright. The ones who awakened low-tier talents looked like they had just been handed a death sentence. For most of them, their ceiling was now fixed at the martial master level. If they were rich or lucky, they might hit martial king, but that was the end of the road. Man, I only got a D-grade talent, one student lamented. I guess this is where we part ways. You guys with C grades better look out for me later. Holy crap, I got a C grade, another shouted. My ancestors must be watching over me. I'm going to brag about this for 10 years. Why does that fat kid Wang Fuguwei get an S grade while I don't even have a D? Life is so unfair. I'm a middle-level martial artist, and I only got a C. My luck is garbage. Ha. I'm just a trainee, but I got a B grade. I can pick almost any school I want. It was a turning point, a single moment that decided their destinies. If you were born poor, this was your chance to flip the script. But if your talent was trash too, then your story was basically over. You'd live a quiet, ordinary life and hope for a better draw in the next one. Relationships, friendships, and rivalries were all shifting in real time as everyone realized they were now heading toward very different lives. Zhu Tsai watched all of this with a complicated expression. She felt like a total joke. She realized there was no coming back from this defeat. Without a word, she turned and left the school, her shadow long and lonely. As a martial king, she never dreamed she would be humiliated by a mere student. As soon as she was gone, Xiongdiu hurried over to Chu Yoyu. "Student Chu, would you like to join Peking University?" Chu Yoyu already knew I had signed with them. She didn't need any convincing. She nodded blankly, agreeing before Xiongdiu could even offer her any special perks. Xiongdiu wasn't surprised. He had done his homework. He knew she was my fiancée. He looked at her, beautiful, talented, and loyal, and then looked at me. Before today, everyone thought I was a loser. They would have said a toad was trying to eat swan meat, or that a beautiful flower was being planted in cow dung. But now, with my saint-level talent and my strength as a high-level martial artist, we were the perfect match. A power couple. Xiongdiu couldn't stop laughing. He had recruited 3 top-tier geniuses in one go. His performance review was going to be off the charts. There was a vice dean position at Peking that had been vacant for years, and he finally felt it was within his reach. He had been stuck at the great grandmaster level for a long time, just one step away from becoming a martial king. The rewards from the dean for this haul would definitely give him the push he needed to break through. He knew he had to head back to the capital to report, but he wanted to leave a good impression. He handed each of us a custom badge. "Use these to enter the university when the time comes," he said. He turned to me, wanting to show his gratitude. He knew my family was worth hundreds of billions, so money or common items wouldn't impress me. He gritted his teeth, reached into his spatial ring, and pulled out his most prized possessions. He handed me 3 spirit stones. These were incredibly rare, even for someone of his status. It was a clear signal. He wasn't just a recruiter anymore. He wanted to be my ally. "Zubai, I have high hopes for you," Xiongdiu said, his voice heavy with expectation. "This year's martial arts exam is special. You have a month or 2 left. I believe you can reach a level that even I can't predict. When the time comes, it'll be up to geniuses like you to bring glory to our country." He looked at me, his eyes shining with the calculated interest of a veteran recruiter. A saint-level talent, as long as I didn't die young, was a future martial emperor in the making. Investing 3 spirit stones now was a small price to pay for that kind of connection. I accepted them without hesitation. A great grandmaster was actively trying to befriend me. There was no reason to refuse. Between these and the stone the principal gave me, I had 4 now. That was enough to start investigating what made these things so mysterious. "Don't worry, Brother Xiong," I said, giving him a confident nod. "I'll definitely participate in the exam. I've put years of work into this. I need to see the results for myself." "Good," he replied, looking satisfied. "That's what I wanted to hear. I'll take my leave now. Next time we meet will be at the exam. I look forward to seeing how much you've changed." With that, Xiongdiu vanished. The principal officially dismissed us for the holidays. The students who had already awakened their talents headed home, buzzing with excitement. The rest were stuck on the playground, waiting for the Martial Arts Association to rush over a replacement awakening orb since I had shattered the last one. I wanted to get home and study my new spirit stones. After a few quick goodbyes, I headed for the gates. My best friend, Wang Fuguei, caught up with me, practically vibrating with energy. "By go! By go!" he shouted, his face flushed. "I got recruited by Peking University too. Brother Xiong told me to look for a teacher named Wang once I get there. Apparently, he's a martial king with a beast tamer talent. My dad is going to lose his mind when he hears I got an S-level talent. I'm going to be living the high life." Fuguei started listing off all the ways he was going to slack off and enjoy himself now that his future was secured. I just looked at him and sighed. "Me? I'm going to work hard and practice," I said. "The grand competition is in 2 days. You're planning to participate, right? Or are you really going to start slacking the moment you get a good talent?" Fuguei's face fell instantly. He let out a long, dramatic wail. "By go! You're not the By go I know. Give me back my old friend. Why are you suddenly so driven?" I wanted to relax, but now you're making me feel guilty. I gave him a light smack on the head. "You're only a primary martial artist right now. If you go to the competition like this, you'll just be embarrassing yourself. Geniuses from all the major cities will be there. There might even be a few top-tier beauties. They'll all be intermediate or high-level, and you'll just be you. TSK, TSK. I watched his expression carefully. The moment I mentioned beauties, his eyes lit up like lanterns. Then, reality hit him, and he deflated again. He realized he was currently the bottom of the barrel among geniuses. "You're right," he muttered, his fist clenching. "I can't go there just to be a laughingstock. For honor, for the ladies, I have to cultivate. I have to cultivate like a madman." He pumped his fist in the air, full of renewed vigor. I nodded, satisfied. It worked every time. I almost wished my system was a counter-slacker system. I could just feed these geniuses a few motivational speeches and level up while they did all the work. "That's the spirit," I said, patting his shoulder. "Keep it up. You'll show all those geniuses who's boss." Fuguwei was practically glowing now. "I've made up my mind, by go. In 2 days, I'm going to break through to intermediate martial artist. I'll make those people drop their jaws." I felt a little guilty. Maybe I'd overdone the chicken soup for the soul. The kid had an S-level talent and a rare subclass. Nobody was going to look down on him regardless of his level, but if it got him to practice, I wasn't going to stop him. As we walked, we ran into Luo Qi, another one of our old friends we used to hang out with. "Hey, Baigu. Fatty, what are you guys doing here? Didn't you have your ceremony today? Did you see those pillars of light earlier? I heard that only happens when someone gets an A-level talent or higher. Do you know who it was?" Fuguwei stepped forward, wearing a look that was incredibly punchable. "What? How did you know I awakened a 1 in a million S-level talent?" Luo Qi blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" Fuguwei gasped dramatically, stumbling back and pointing a finger at Luo Qi. "You. How did you also know I awakened a top-tier beast tamer talent that rivals an SSS level?" I covered my face with my hand. I didn't know this idiot. I really didn't. Before Fuguwei could continue his performance, I stepped in. "We're done with the ceremony," I said. "Those light pillars you saw? One of them was this kid. He really did get an S-level talent and a special subclass." Silence fell. Luo Qi stared at Fuguwei, his mouth hanging open. "Holy crap, are you serious? This loser actually got an S-level? And a special talent?" "Loser?" Fuguwei narrowed his eyes, looming over Luo Qi. Luo Qi realized his mistake instantly. The power dynamic had shifted. Fuguwei wasn't just a rich kid anymore. He was a future powerhouse. No, Fuguwei-gu. I was talking about myself. I'm the loser. I'm the one who's trash." Fuguwei patted Luo Qi's head, looking pleased. "Good. You're a smart man, Luo Qi. From now on, I've got your back. If you run into trouble, just say my name." Luo Qi nodded frantically and scrambled away as fast as he could. I didn't want to deal with any more nonsense, so I picked up the pace toward home. Hidden in the shadows of a nearby alley, my maid, Luo Yin, watched us go. Her head was spinning. Everything that had happened today felt like a fever dream. The useless, young master she was supposed to protect had suddenly transformed. He had hidden his strength as a high-level martial artist. He had awakened a saint-level talent. He had stood his ground against a martial king, crippled a rival in one move, and managed to get even closer to Miss Chu. She touched her forehead, wondering if she had accidentally fallen into an illusion. She realized now why she hadn't felt the need to intervene when Su Fei challenged me. I hadn't needed protection at all. Luo Yin was completely stunned by everything that happened today. It took her a long time to process the shock. On the way back, she finally pulled out her phone and called my parents to report the situation. "Xiao Luo, what did you just say?" My father, Su Xingzhou, stammered into the receiver. Can you say that one more time?" His right hand was trembling. He couldn't believe his ears. Luo Yin knew how ridiculous it sounded. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would have thought it was a bad joke. She took a deep breath and patiently repeated the day's events. "I understand," my father said, his voice thick with suppressed emotion. "Please, protect him well. His mother and I are coming back immediately." He hung up and sat there for a second, trying to breathe. Then he scrambled through his contacts and called my mother, Shiring. "Hello, Xingzhou. What is it?" she answered, sounding distracted. "I have a meeting starting soon." "Shiring, get home now," my father blurted out. "Our boy, that brat of ours, he awakened today? It's a saint-level talent. A legend. Back on the street. Luo Yin finished the call and hurried to catch up with me. She looked at me with a new sense of wariness. Protecting a master with this kind of talent was going to be a dangerous, high-stakes job. I felt different now. Usually, I wouldn't have noticed a thing, but with my saint-level talent and my status as a high-level martial artist, my senses were razor-sharp. I felt a gaze burning into the back of my neck. I looked around, scanning the crowds in the alleys, but I couldn't see anyone watching me. Even so, I trusted my gut. Fuguei and I were now considered top-tier geniuses. I was even more than that. I was a legend in the making. I knew the history of this world. For thousands of years, the alien races had been at war with humanity. They sent spies and assassins into our cities to hunt down young talents. A genius who doesn't grow up isn't a genius at all. They're just a target. Countless human prodigies had been murdered before they could reach their peak. Even SSS-level talents had been assassinated in recent years. I was only a high-level martial artist. I couldn't afford to be arrogant. I had made too much noise today. The aliens would definitely come for me. The urge to get stronger grew like a fire in my chest. Luckily, I had the 4 spirit stones from the principal and Captain Xiong. Those would be enough to push my cultivation further. Plus, I had that body-cleansing pill. I didn't need it anymore, so I could sell it and buy more top-tier talents from the system. I picked up my pace. I needed to get home and cultivate. Meanwhile, at the best hospital in Tianhai City, the atmosphere was grim. Su Fei had been rushed into the ICU. On the outside, he didn't look too bad, but his insides were a wreck. The doctors in the trauma room were at a total loss. Even though he had been fed life-saving pills on the way, he was barely hanging on by a thread. His parents dropped everything and raced to the hospital, calling in every top specialist in the city. Money was no object. But when the experts saw the state of his body, they stopped working. The damage was catastrophic. It was a death sentence. The doctors exchanged helpless looks and sighed. There was nothing they could do. They stitched up his wounds, cleaned the blood, and walked out of the operating room. Su Fei's mother ran up to them, her face pale with terror. "Doctor, is my son okay? How is he?" The lead surgeon looked at her with pity. "I'm sorry. We did everything we could." Before he even reached the hospital, he was already. He didn't finish the sentence. The doctors hurried away before the family could react. Su Fei's mother collapsed to the floor as if she'd been struck by lightning. The hospital corridors filled with the sound of her wailing. Then, her grief turned into a white-hot rage. "My son, you finally awakened an S-level talent. You were supposed to be better than your brother. How can you be gone?" She looked up at her husband, screaming, "Su Wenwei, your son just died and you're just standing there? Are you heartless? He was an S-level genius. Do you know how long it's been since our family had won? It's all ruined." She grabbed his coat, shaking him. "Who did this? Which bastard killed my son? I want his whole family dead. I want them buried with Xiao Fei." She acted like a madwoman, rolling on the floor and screaming for blood. Su Wenhui just looked down at her with cold eyes. On the way here, he had already received a call from the higher-ups. They told him his son had brought this on himself. They told him to mourn and move on, and specifically warned him not to cause trouble for the one who did it. He had agreed over the phone, but this was his son. The debt of blood had to be paid. His son was an S-level talent, his ticket to finally escaping the control of his father-in-law. Seeing his wife act like a spoiled child only made him angrier. She was the one who had pampered the boy to death, giving him everything he wanted until he became a monster. Now she was blaming him? It was a curse to have a wife like this. But he couldn't offend her yet, or he'd have to answer to her father. "Enough. Get up," he hissed. "Stop making a scene. I'll handle this. Now clean yourself up and let's go home." He looked toward the ICU door one last time. No matter how wrong his son was, no outsider had the right to discipline him like that. The Su family. Su Bai? Saint-level talent, huh? Su Wenhui walked into a quiet corner of the hospital and dialed a number he had kept hidden for a long time. "Hello," a low, gravelly voice answered. "Has Mr. Su decided to cooperate?" Su finally made up his mind. "Cut the crap," Su Wenhui said, his voice trembling with malice. "I'm in. I'll join you. But I need you to do something for me," Su Wenhui muttered into the phone. "I know what you want," the gravelly voice on the other end chuckled. "You want revenge for that useless son of yours, right? We were already planning to move. Consider it done." I hope you mean that, Su Wenhui said, his voice trembling with malice. If you succeed, I'm all yours. I'll cooperate with everything you need. Then we have a deal, Mr. Su. Deep inside a hidden basement somewhere in Jiang province, the man hung up the phone. He looked around the room at his companions. If a normal person had walked in, they would have died of fright. These weren't humans. They were monsters, creatures that shouldn't exist outside of myths. A minotaur leaned against a wall, a centaur polished a blade, and a werewolf paced near a pile of bleached skeletons. They were the outsiders. These were intelligent, cunning beings who had invaded this world to plunder its spiritual energy. Unlike the mindless beasts that attacked cities in wild frenzies, these creatures could think, plot, and betray. They were the true masterminds behind the devastating beast tides that had wiped out entire human cities for thousands of years. Boss, the man who spoke to Su Wenhui said, looking toward a dark corner. Su Wenhui is in. He wants us to kill the kid who hurt his son. A large shadow shifted in the corner. The leader of the group nodded slowly. Good. With Su Wenhui on our side, our funding will be limitless. Our operations will be much smoother now. The leader paused, his eyes glowing in the dark. As for his son's killer, it's a simple task. I've already sent the report upstairs. It's incredible that a tiny place like Tianhai City produced 3 S-level talents, and one of them is rumored to have a Saint-level talent. We need to verify if that's true. He stood up, his presence filling the room with dread. The mission rank is at least S-level. A Grandmaster might even be sent to handle this personally. Keep a close eye on the Su family and their company. We have big plans for them. Understood, boss, the man replied. The basement fell back into a deathly silence. Meanwhile, I arrived back at my villa. Everything looked exactly the same. The maid greeted me at the door, and the quiet luxury of the house felt like a dream compared to the chaos at school. I took a deep breath. My new strength was real. It was time to stop hiding and start pushing myself even harder. I was about to head to my room to cultivate when the doorbell rang. I froze. I never invited friends over, and my rich best friend, Wang Fuguei, was currently at home acting like a madman trying to cultivate after the inspirational speech I gave him. I walked to the door and pulled it open. Son, before I could react, a woman lunged forward and pulled me into a tight hug. It was my mother. I could see tears welling up in her eyes. Behind her stood my father, looking at me with a mix of shock and pride. For years, they had worked themselves to the bone just so I could live a normal life. They never expected me to be anything special. But in just one day, I had become a high-level martial artist with a Saint-level talent and a guaranteed spot at Peking University. I felt incredibly awkward. Since I transmigrated, I'd barely seen them. They usually just sent money to my account and gave me a quick phone call once a month. I preferred it that way. Facing 2 total strangers who claimed to be my parents was a lot to handle. Mom, I'm right here," I mumbled, trying to breathe. As she squeezed me, I felt a sharp, piercing gaze on the side of my head. I looked over and saw my cheap dad staring at me. It was ridiculous. Was he actually jealous of his own son? The man was a total wife-doting maniac. I managed to wiggle out of the hug and stood straight. "You little brat," my father barked, trying to regain his dignity. "You've been a high-level martial artist this whole time? You kept your mother and me in the dark. If it weren't for the massive commotion you caused today, we'd still think you were a failure." I wanted to roll my eyes. Everyone thought I was some master of disguise. I wasn't hiding anything. 2 days ago, I really was a loser. I just happened to reach this level in 48 hours. But I couldn't tell them that. If people knew I could grow this fast, I'd be kidnapped and dissected by a martial emperor within the hour. Yeah, whatever you say," I said dismissively. My father, Su Xingzhou, turned red. He reached for his belt, looking like he wanted to give me a taste of the fatherly love I'd missed out on over the years. "Su Xingzhou, what do you think you're doing?" my mother snapped. She stepped between us, glaring at him. "Our son has been suffering in silence for years, hiding his talent to stay safe. And now we finally know he's a genius. This is a celebration. If you try to use your business negotiation attitude on our son, I'm done with you." My father's intimidation attempt collapsed in an instant. The moment my mother threatened him, he completely lost his nerve. He froze mid-action, looking at me with a face full of suppressed rage. He was clearly seething that his own wife had scolded him in front of his son, and he shot me a look that said, "I'll remember this." It was obvious he was jealous of his own kid. My mother didn't care. She slapped him hard across the back, her voice turning sharp and commanding. "If you ever look at our son like that again, you'd better think long and hard about what kind of hard floor you want to kneel on when we get home." My father, Su Xingzhou, immediately wiped the expression off his face. He transformed into a perfectly normal, supportive father in a heartbeat. With him out of the way, my mother turned her full attention back to me. She realized how little she'd been involved in my life lately and wanted to make up for lost time. "Son, how have you really been these past 2 years?" she asked softly. "I've been so busy with work that I forgot to check in on you." "I'm fine, Mom," I said, trying to reassure her. "It's not like I was lonely. I had Wang Fugue to hang out with." That's good, she nodded. But then her eyes twinkled with a different kind of interest. "So, tell me, how are things going with Chu Xiaoyu? You haven't forgotten you two have a marriage contract, right? Don't you dare tell me you two aren't getting along." I felt a headache coming on. "I'm telling you now," she continued, her tone turning serious. "If you bring home some other girl, I won't recognize her. Xiaoyu is perfect. She's beautiful, talented, and so kind. If you make her unhappy, don't blame me if I let your father give you a reminder of your childhood through a beating." It seemed no matter what world I was in, I couldn't escape parents nagging about marriage. My mother had heard from the maid that I'd been ignoring Xiaoyu lately, treating a prize cabbage like it was trash. To her, Xiaoyu was the perfect daughter-in-law, and the fact that we were childhood sweethearts made it even better. Back when everyone thought I was a loser, she might have let it go to spare the girl, but now that I was a high-level martial artist, she wasn't letting that girl get away. "Mom, what are you even talking about?" I groaned. "Xiaoyu and I are way too young to even think about marriage. Just drop it." I was stressed. I had ignored her for 2.5 years because of my lack of talent. Even if she still liked me, now wasn't the time to talk about weddings. "Humph, I don't care," my mother said, waving her hand dismissively. "If it's not Xiaoyu, I'm not agreeing to it. You need to be proactive. She just awakened an SS-rank talent. Do you know how many rich families are staring at her right now? If you don't lock this down, someone else will snatch her away." Fine, whatever you say," I muttered, desperate to change the subject. "Let's talk about something else. Mom, look at this." I reached into my spatial ring and pulled out a glowing pill. "This is a Martial King breakthrough pill. I remember you're still a high-level martial master. This should help you reach the Martial King realm." My mother stopped mid-sentence. She stared at the pill in her hand, sniffing the faint, medicinal aroma. It was top quality. A pill like this would easily cost hundreds of millions on the open market and could only be crafted by a Tier 4 alchemist, people even my parents didn't have connections with. "Son, where did you get this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Oh, that," I said casually. "I made a bet with Su Fei from the Su family. He lost, so the pill is mine now. Also, just so you know, he tried to kill me during the duel. So I crippled him. I heard he's in the hospital, but even if he lives, he's done as a martial artist. Is that going to be a problem for the family?" Before my mother could even process the news, my father stepped forward, his eyes wide. "You crippled Su Fei? The kid with the S-rank talent." He had heard about the conflict from the maid, but he hadn't realized I'd gone that far. The Su family and our family business were already rivals. Taking out their genius heir was a massive blow. I shrugged. He tried to kill me first. What was I supposed to do? Suddenly, my father grinned. "No problem at all. Son, you did a fantastic job. I've hated that old dog Su for years. He's always trying to compete with me. Now his son is a cripple, and there's nothing he can do but cry about it. That's my boy. Su Xingzhou, don't you dare encourage him," my mother barked. She turned back to me, her face full of worry. "If anything happens to my son because of this, I'm holding you responsible. The Su family is going to be furious, especially Su Fei's mother. That woman is a total nightmare. If she finds out her son is ruined, she'll go nuclear." My father nodded, his expression turning serious again. "She's right. They'll definitely want revenge. Son, you have to be careful. Because of the genius protection law, they won't attack you openly, but they'll definitely try something in the shadows. Your mother and I are moving in here with you for a few days. The company can wait. Nothing is more important than your safety. All right, I agreed. My cheap dad was right. I needed to watch out for any hidden snakes trying to sneak into my house at night. Having them around was a good safety net, even if it meant my peaceful solo life was officially over. My parents were moving in. It felt strange. I had their memories, but they still felt like strangers to me. In my mind, I knew they had always been good to me. They gave me everything I asked for, but unlike Su Fei's parents, they didn't spoil me. They had strong morals and expected me to have them, too. Whenever the original Su Bai messed up, even my gentle mother would turn terrifying. They'd team up for a mixed doubles lecture, and by lecture, I mean a beating, until I admitted my mistakes. Those nights stayed with me. But as I got older and more independent, they got busier with work. Once I hit high school and started slacking off, they mostly left me alone. They saw my blood chi wasn't moving no matter how hard I tried, so they stopped pushing the martial arts path. They figured I'd just inherit the family business. They probably even thought about starting a new account and having another kid, but work kept them too busy to try. We won't disturb you then, my father, Su Xingzhou said. You're heading to Jiang province the day after tomorrow for the big competition, right? Practice hard these next few days. Make your old man proud. He glanced at the maid. There was a silent understanding between them. She was a martial king. After all, she knew how to read a room. She nodded subtly, signaling that she'd keep me safe, and my father finally looked relaxed. I'll take the pill, son, my mother, Shering, added as she walked toward the door. But I'd be even happier if you brought home a daughter-in-law for me to meet. Xiao Luo, take good care of my boy. I'll give you a raise. She kept nagging about the daughter-in-law thing until the door closed. Apparently, she was already planning a trip to the Chu family. She thought we were almost old enough to get married. She clutched the pill I gave her like a treasure. It was the first gift I'd ever given her, and she looked like she didn't even want to eat it. I let out a long breath once they were gone. Even in a world of martial arts and monsters, you can't escape parents pressuring you to get married. The marriage urge is a power level all its own. Finally, I could focus on getting stronger. I went up to my room and pulled out the 4 spirit stones I'd acquired today. The moment they touched my hand, my silent system suddenly flared to life. New currency detected. System updating. A few seconds later, it finished. It had added spirit stones as a currency, opened a system shop, and added a new top-up feature. I scrolled through the new interface. Master, a sweet, lowly-style voice rang out in my head. The system suggests you deposit those 4 spirit stones immediately. It will help Master grow much faster. I rolled my eyes. There it was. The system was finally showing its true colors. It just wanted my money. It was trying to sweet-talk me into a deposit. I ignored the voice and looked at my updated status panel. It looked way better after I'd spent those millions earlier. Name, Su Bai. Talent, Immortal Grade, Top-Tier Fire Talent. Realm, High-Level Martial Artist. Cultivation, Changchun Secret, Enlightenment Secret. Martial Arts, Yuan Yang / Balance, 114,514 yuan. The shop was the real prize. I opened it, and a holographic projection filled my vision, scrolling through items so fast it made my head spin. When it stopped, my jaw dropped. The Xianyuan sword. The legendary blade of China. It said it could protect the human race and make the user invincible. Price, unknown. Heaven-mending stone. Leftover from the goddess Manhwa. It promised infinite vitality and the best talent in the universe. Price, 99,999 spirit stones. I stopped reading after that. It was useless. The sword didn't even have a price, and the stone cost a fortune. The system was just teasing me, showing me things that would make me a god just to make me feel poor. If I had any of those, I wouldn't need to cultivate. I could just wipe out entire alien races with a wave of my hand. I shook my head and set a filter for items costing 4 spirit stones or less. The list refreshed, becoming much more realistic. Pure Yang Sword. A high-grade immortal iron sword forged by a nameless grade 4 master. Sharp enough to cut through steel like butter. Price, 1 spirit stone. Grade 3 Martial King Breakthrough Pill. A top-quality pill to help break through the bottlenecks of the Martial King realm. Now we were talking. This was how I was going to win. The pill description was clear. It guaranteed a 100% success rate for breaking through to the Martial King realm. No failure possible. It was a sure thing. The price was just 1 spirit stone. Then I saw the grade 5 marrow cleansing pill. The description said it was a top-tier medicine that could strip every impurity from my body. Using it would skyrocket my cultivation speed. There was even a note saying that if I used it before my official awakening ceremony, something unknown and special might happen. That one cost 2 spirit stones. I scanned the rest of the list. Most of the items were things I'd seen before, but there was a massive difference. Every single pill in this shop was supreme grade. My heart skipped a beat. Supreme grade pills were legendary. Even a basic grade 1 supreme pill was enough to make people go insane with greed. Only a grade 6 alchemist or higher could even dream of refining something that pure. The reason they were called supreme was simple. They left 0 impurities behind. Even the high-grade pills you could buy in stores left gunk in your meridians that was almost impossible to clear. Those impurities eventually ruined your foundation and stopped your progress forever. But a supreme pill? It was pure power with no side effects. Nobody ever sold these on the open market. If you found one, you kept it for a life-or-death breakthrough. Even other alchemists would kill for one just to study its secrets. Nowadays, the knowledge of how to make them was almost extinct. Seeing a whole shop full of them made my head spin. The system was on a completely different level from the mortal world. My only complaint was the currency. Why did everything have to cost spirit stones? I kept scrolling, looking for something to give me an edge. I was disappointed that there weren't any experience pills to instantly level me up. That would have been too easy. However, I did find a grade 3 spirit accumulation pill. It promised to drastically increase my cultivation speed based on my realm and talent. It wouldn't work once I hit the Martial King stage, but for now, it was perfect. The price was 1 spirit stone. I didn't hesitate. I bought it. I looked at my remaining balance. I only had 4 spirit stones total, and I'd already spent some. I realized I needed to start hoarding these things if I wanted the good stuff. I finalized my purchases, the spirit accumulation pill, and that pure yang sword I saw earlier. The sword was Earth grade, low rank. That was insane. Most martial grandmasters couldn't even get their hands on an Earth grade weapon, yet I got one for a single spirit stone. In this world, weapons were ranked heaven, earth, black, and yellow. A good weapon was often better than a pill. A pill gives you strength eventually, but a weapon gives it to you right now. A basic yellow grade sword could boost your power by 30%. A supreme grade one, it doubled your strength. If a primary martial artist held a yellow grade weapon, they could easily fight 3 people at their own level. But you had to be compatible with the weapon. If the energy didn't match, it would actually make you weaker. Luckily, I had an immortal grade talent. I could master any weapon instantly. This sword was the perfect match for my Yuan Yang slash. With my current strength as a high-level martial artist and this blade, I felt like I could take on a martial master. Maybe even a mid or high-level one. It was just a feeling, though. I hadn't actually fought one yet. My inventory updated, 1 spirit accumulation pill and 1 pure yang sword. My balance dropped from 4 stones to 2. Suddenly, a golden blade appeared in my hand. It was forged from pure yang iron, incredibly sharp and tougher than any common steel. It felt surprisingly light. I channeled a bit of my chi into it and gave it a light swing. A fierce, golden sword aura exploded from the blade. The air in my room turned violent, ready to shred everything in sight. I pulled back immediately, sweating. I almost leveled my own house. The power was double what I expected, and that was without even using a technique. I grinned. The school tournament championship was basically mine. I looked at my last 2 spirit stones. There was no point in saving them. I decided to use them to boost my cultivation right now. I pulled out the spirit accumulation pill. The scent was incredible, filling the room with a fragrance that made my head clear. I swallowed it in one gulp and sat cross-legged on my bed. I activated my enlightenment secret technique while holding a spirit stone in my hand to absorb its energy. The effect was instant. The natural energy in the room, which usually felt still, began to thrash around. The pill acted like a magnet. The energy rushed toward me like a storm. Thanks to my immortal grade talent, my body acted like a bottomless pit. No matter how much energy poured in, I soaked it all up without breaking a sweat. Would you like to hear what happens in the next chapter? One breath passed. Between the surging natural energy, the pill, and my secret cultivation technique, my immortal-grade talent went into overdrive. I felt my body changing, so I pushed harder, greedily drinking in every drop of energy from the room. Suddenly, a crisp cracking sound echoed from inside my chest. It felt like a heavy shackle had finally snapped. A wave of pure relief washed over me. I felt light, almost weightless. I had broken through. I was now a martial master. I could feel my blood chi surging through my veins, thickening and refining itself into something far more potent. It was a tingling, numbing sensation that felt incredible. This was the core difference. A martial master begins the process of converting raw blood chi into true spiritual energy. Once a warrior reaches the martial king stage, that conversion is complete. That's when you can truly release energy externally, fly on a sword, or even walk through the clouds. At the grandmaster level and beyond, the energy becomes so pure you can stay in the sky forever if you want. But getting there is the hard part. The jump from a high-level martial master to a martial king is like facing a massive great wall. Most people spend their entire lives stuck on the other side, unable to climb over. Even the greatest geniuses in history took a week to reach the master stage and a full month to hit martial king. For a normal person, those steps take years. An hour passed. My absorption speed only increased. The spirit stone in my hand visibly dimmed as I drained it dry. I was lucky I had these stones. The thin energy in the air wouldn't have been enough to fuel my growth. My foundation as a primary martial master felt rock solid within minutes. For anyone else, stabilizing this realm would take weeks of meditation, but I was already ready for the next step. 3 hours later, I hit intermediate martial master. The blood chi in my body compressed again, turning into something that felt dangerously close to the spiritual energy of a martial king. I didn't stop. I kept pushing, ignoring the world outside. When the first rays of morning light hit my face, that familiar tingling sensation returned one more time. High-level martial master. Done. I snapped my eyes open. The sudden explosion of power from my breakthrough was too much to contain. A shock wave of energy rippled out, threatening to wreck the furniture. Downstairs, Luo Yin noticed immediately. I looked at the spirit stone in my hand. It was gray and lifeless, completely drained of energy. I tossed it into my storage space. I only had one stone left now, but the trade-off was insane. One pill and one stone had taken me from a high-level martial artist to a high-level martial master in a single night. If I told the world, not even a martial emperor would believe me. Suddenly, the air in the hallway turned heavy. A terrifying pressure erupted, and before I could blink, my bedroom door was kicked off its hinges with a violent bang. Luo Yin stood there, her eyes cold, her body radiating a killing intent so sharp it made my skin crawl. She was ready to execute whoever was attacking me. "Young master, are you all right?" she shouted, scanning the room for enemies. I froze, staring at her in shock. I was happy about my breakthrough, but I wasn't expecting my door to be demolished. More importantly, I was staring at the source of that terrifying pressure. It was coming from her. "Holy crap," I blurted out. "You're a primary martial king?" I couldn't help it. My maid, the woman who had been cooking my meals and doing my laundry for 2 years, was a martial king. The principal of my school was only at that level. She was a top-tier powerhouse acting as a professional servant. Luo Yin scanned the room one last time. When she realized there was no intruder, her face went pale. She realized she had messed up. She had sensed my sudden spike in power and reacted instinctively, completely forgetting to hide her own strength. She looked at me, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Young master, you're a high-level martial master?" We both stood there, stunned by each other. She couldn't wrap her head around it. Yesterday, I was just a student struggling with his blood chi. How could I jump an entire major realm in one night? She started rationalizing it immediately, thinking I must have been hiding my true strength for years, even from her. In her mind, nobody could achieve this in a night. It took her a year of brutal training to make that jump. But as she looked at my steady breath and calm eyes, she realized the truth was standing right in front of her. I wasn't the failure everyone thought I was. Not even close. Luo Yin stood there, frozen. I could see her brain working overtime, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Even a legendary genius couldn't jump an entire realm in a single night. She must have concluded that I'd been hiding my true strength all along. A high-level martial master? And I hadn't even taken the college entrance exams yet. If this news got out, the consequences would be dire. The last time a human showed this kind of talent, he became a sword saint. The alien races still lived in fear of the day he dominated them thousands of years ago. They would never allow another sword saint to rise. They would hunt me down. Luo Yin realized she had to report this to my father immediately. If she didn't, being fired would be the least of her worries. She checked to make sure I was okay, then hurried out of the room. "Your breakfast is ready," she called back over her shoulder. "Make sure you eat." As soon as she reached the living room, she pulled out her phone. My father, Su Xingzhou, was back at his office, looking over a business proposal worth $10 billion. When he heard Luo Yan's report, he leaped to his feet, nearly knocking his chair over. "What?" he shouted. The $10 billion deal didn't matter anymore. My son, Su Bai, has the potential to shake the world. He thought reaching the level of a professional martial artist was a surprise, but this was on a different level. Once he calmed down, he started thinking about the danger. If my talent was this high, alien spies would definitely target me. "We need to move," he muttered. He called my mother, Shiring, right away. "Our son, yeah? Exactly. We're moving tomorrow." Back in my room, I was still in a daze. My door was gone, and my beautiful maid turned out to be a hidden martial king. That meant she wasn't just a maid. She was a bodyguard my parents hired to watch me. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine thinking about how she'd been monitoring everything I did for the last 2 years. Eventually, I shook it off. It was time to focus. I had jumped from a high-level martial artist to a high-level martial master in one night. Sure, I had the immortal-grade talent and the earth-grade cultivation technique, but it had cost me 2 spirit stones. That was the equivalent of $20 billion for one night of training. Martial arts was a rich man's game, and even my parents' wealth couldn't sustain that kind of spending forever. I needed to find a way to make my own money. In this world, the big earners were alchemists and blacksmiths. With my system, I could sell top-tier pills and weapons, but those professions required specific talents. I'd have to find someone to copy those talents from first. I headed downstairs. The living room was empty. Luo Yin was nowhere to be seen, probably because things were awkward now that I knew her secret. I sat down and ate breakfast while planning my next move. First, I had a marrow cleansing pill. It was a grade 5 pill, which meant it was worth billions. If I sold it, I'd have the cash to copy more talents and start a cycle of profit. The only problem was the system shop. It only accepted spirit stones as currency, and those were incredibly rare. The only way to get more was to win the school competition tomorrow, explore dangerous hidden realms, or kill high-level beasts. For now, I just needed to sell the pill. I finished my meal and left the villa. I pulled up a map on my phone and searched for the nearest trade house. Jubao Pavilion, 300 meters away, the app told me. Jubao Pavilion was a global powerhouse. Their president and vice president were both martial emperors. Nobody knew exactly how many hidden masters they had, but even a branch manager in a small city like Tianhai was at least a martial king. In a provincial capital, they were grandmasters. With dozens of branches across the country, their strength rivaled the national army. There were 3 major powers in the country: the military, Jubao Pavilion, and a third, mysterious organization. Luckily, Jubao Pavilion only cared about business, not politics. They were the top choice for rogue cultivators who didn't want the restrictions of the military. I sighed as I walked. In my old world, business was just business. You couldn't have that much power without the government shutting you down. But here, strength was everything. If your fist was hard enough, you could be king. At least I didn't have to worry about them ripping me off. A business that big lived and died by its reputation. Destination in 100 meters, the map announced. I looked up and saw the sign. The building was impossible to miss. It was a massive, towering pagoda that looked like an ancient Chinese tea house, standing tall and proud among the modern skyscrapers. The pagoda was even more massive up close. I couldn't even tell what kind of materials they used to build it, but it looked ancient and indestructible. The Jubao Pavilion sign hung high in the center, glowing with a prestige that could be seen from blocks away. My navigation app chirped one last time, telling me I had arrived, and then went silent. As I walked toward the entrance, a group of young, pretty receptionists stopped their chatting to look at me. I could feel their eyes scanning my clothes and my posture. In this world, your look told people everything they needed to know. They probably saw a rich student getting ready for his final exams. "Look at him," one whispered. "He's definitely here to buy pills for the awakening ceremony." "He looks like he's got money," another added. "Hey, Lily, you should take this one. If he buys big, your commission will be huge." They were nudging a girl named Lily toward me. I caught snippets of their conversation. Apparently, Lily was a recent graduate with a mother who was deathly ill at home. She needed the money for medical bills. It was a rare sight in a world this cutthroat. Instead of fighting over a wealthy-looking client, the veteran girls were stepping back to help the newcomer. It was a small, quiet act of kindness that reminded me there was still some humanity left in this era of strength. Lily took a deep breath, smoothed out her uniform, and approached me with a nervous but professional smile. "Hello, classmate," she said softly. "Are you looking for specific pills? I can guide you through our inventory." "Sure," I said, nodding. "Show me what you have. I wanted to see the market prices for myself." We walked past glass cases filled with glowing medicine. She pointed to a level 1 mid-grade recovery pill. It cost 100,000 yuan and only worked for basic practitioners. Then there was a level 1 high-grade spirit gathering pill for 1,000,000 yuan. The prices only went up from there. Level 2 pills were already hitting the tens of millions. I realized quickly that cultivation was a game for the elite. If you didn't have a mountain of gold, you weren't going far. Based on what I saw, the levels were consistent. Level 1 was for practitioners, Level 2 for martial masters, all the way up to Level 7 for martial emperors. As for Level 8 or 9 pills, they didn't exist anymore. At least, no living alchemist on Earth could make them. They were only found in ancient ruins left behind from the last era of spiritual recovery. Thousands of years ago, Earth had been even more glorious than it was now. Masters walked the streets, and some had even surpassed the emperor level before disappearing. Then, the spiritual energy vanished, leading to the age of technology, only to return again recently. No one knew why the old world collapsed. It was a mystery buried in time. Lily noticed I was just staring at the cases without picking anything. "Is there something specific you need?" she asked, worried she was losing the sale. "I can recommend something based on your current realm." I looked at her and shook my head. "I'm not here to buy," I said calmly. "I'm here to sell." I reached into my storage ring and pulled out the level 5 high-grade marrow cleansing pill. The moment it touched the air, a thick, heavenly fragrance exploded through the entire pavilion. It wasn't just a smell. It felt like a wave of pure energy. Lily froze. She stood there, eyes wide, completely intoxicated by the scent. I had to call her name twice before she snapped out of it. I can't handle this transaction," she stammered, her voice trembling with excitement. "A fragrance this strong. This has to be a high-level pill. Please, wait here. I have to get the president." She turned and ran toward the elevator, her face flushed. She knew what this meant. A commission on a pill this rare would be enough to save her mother 10 times over. She scrambled toward the top floor, but she didn't even need to knock. The president of the branch was already stepping out of his office, his eyes sharp, drawn by the scent of a treasure he hadn't smelled in years. The office door swung open, and 2 men stepped out. One was the branch president, but the man beside him caught my attention. It was Master Zhang. Lily looked stunned to see him. Master Zhang was a second-rank alchemist, a rare talent the Treasure Pavilion had spent a fortune to recruit. He was usually buried in his lab, hidden away from the world. He was the reason this branch could even offer second-rank pills for sale. "President, I was just coming to," Lily started, but the president cut her off with a wave of his hand. "I know why you're here," he said, his eyes fixed on me. He turned to the alchemist. "Old Zhang, you felt it, didn't you? Looks like a new friend has brought us something special." Master Zhang was muttering to himself, his nose twitching. That fragrance, could it be related to the vision from yesterday? The authorities had tried to suppress the news of the heavenly phenomenon, but people in the business weren't blind. They knew something massive had happened. Master Zhang looked like a man possessed. I could tell he believed this pill was his ticket to finally breaking through his current alchemist rank. Down in the main hall, I was the center of attention. The girls who had been gossiping earlier were staring at me with their mouths hanging open. They couldn't believe a kid like me was holding a high-grade pill with such a potent aroma. They knew if this sale went through, Lily's commission would be enough to save her mother. The president approached me with a practiced, professional smile. Master Zhang followed, his eyes scanning me with intense curiosity. He seemed baffled that someone so young possessed such a treasure. Lily stood off to the side, quiet and respectful. She knew this conversation was way above her pay grade. "May I ask your name, young friend?" the president asked. "My name is Su Bai," I replied calmly. The president's mind started racing. I could almost see the gears turning as he searched for a Su family in the province that fit the profile. His eyes suddenly widened. Su Bai? The name was familiar. But the Su Bai he knew was rumored to be a useless failure with a blood chi of only 2.5. He looked at me again, sensing my energy. His expression shifted from curiosity to pure shock. I wasn't a failure. I was radiating the aura of a martial master. A 17-year-old martial master in Tianhai City? He hadn't heard a single whisper about this. "Tell me," he said, leaning in slightly. "What is your relationship to Su Xingzhou?" I wasn't surprised he knew my cheap father. The man owned a multi-billion-dollar empire and was a martial king. He was a legend in these circles. "He's my father," I said. "Is there a problem?" The president gasped. The rumors said Su Xingzhou's son was a talentless brat who wouldn't even become a basic warrior before the exams. But the person standing in front of him was a powerhouse. Then it clicked for him. He must have heard about the awakening ceremony at the first high school, the 2 S-grade talents, the 1 God-grade talent, and the fact that Su Fei had been crippled. If I was this strong, it made sense why I wasn't afraid of the Su family's retaliation. "No problem at all," the president laughed, his tone suddenly becoming warm and familiar. "I've done plenty of business with your father. My name is Feng Yuqing. You can just call me Uncle Feng. If I'd known it was you, I would have come down to greet you personally. Next time, give me a heads up." He was good. In 2 sentences, he'd turned a business transaction into a family favor. "Sure thing, Uncle Feng," I played along. He was a martial king and the head of the treasure pavilion. Having him in my corner was a massive win. "I heard you're here to sell a pill," Feng Yuqing asked, glancing at the bottle in my hand. "Is it this one?" Beside him, Master Zhang was staring at the pill like a starving man looking at a feast. "Yes," I said, holding it up. "It's a level 5 high-grade marrow cleansing pill. It's meant for improving one's latent talent, but at my current level, I don't really need it. I'd rather have the cash. Are you buying?" "We'll buy it," Master Zhang shouted before the president could even open his mouth. "Whatever the price, we'll take it. Young friend, sell it to me. I, Zhang Dihai, give you my word." He was trembling. A level 5 pill. He'd only ever seen a few level 4 pills in his entire life, and those had been enough to help him reach the 2nd rank. If he could study this, he could finally advance. I looked at him, confused. I'd thought he was just a bodyguard. Feng Yuqing realized he'd forgotten his manners. "Forgive him, Su Bai. This is Master Zhang, a 2nd-rank alchemist. He's a bit sensitive when it comes to high-level pills." As I looked at Zhang Dihai, a familiar notification flashed in my vision. "Ultimate Alchemist Talent Detected. Would you like to pay to copy?" I froze for a second. I could copy alchemist talents too? I didn't even have to think about it. Once I sold this pill and got the money, that talent was mine. "Nice to meet you, Master Zhang," I said. "I came to the treasure pavilion specifically to sell this." "I'll definitely sell it to the treasure pavilion," I said, keeping my voice steady. Master Zhang didn't even try to play it cool. He was practically vibrating with excitement. In the world of business, showing that much interest is a death sentence. It gives the seller all the leverage to fleece you for every cent. Feng Yuqing looked like he had a massive headache watching his friend crumble. He knew they were about to overpay, but he also knew they couldn't let this pill walk out the door. "Su Bai, give us a price," Feng Yuqing said, sighing. "If it's reasonable, we'll close the deal right now." I nodded. I had a number in my head, but I wanted to see what they offered first. Normally, a level 5 pill started at 1 billion. A high-grade version could easily hit 3 or 4 billion. However, this marrow cleansing pill had a catch. It only worked on people who hadn't awakened their powers yet. For anyone else, it was useless. That usually drove the price down. Feng Yuqing hesitated for a long time, studying me. He wasn't just looking at the pill anymore. He was looking at a teenager who had somehow reached the rank of martial master. If the rumors were true, I was also likely connected to the strange phenomena that happened yesterday. 30 billion, Feng Yuqing finally said. One lump sum. What do you think? I froze. 30 billion? My internal goal was barely 2 billion. He was offering 10 times what I expected. Then, I realized the truth. He wasn't just paying for the medicine. He was paying for me. He was investing in a potential genius before I became too powerful to reach. I didn't mind. My system was a bottomless pit that swallowed money like water. I needed every bit of cash I could get. Deal, I said. Let's do it. I gave him my bank account number, and seconds later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. The transfer was instant. I handed over the bottle, and Master Zhang grabbed it like it was a holy relic. He didn't even say goodbye. He just turned and sprinted toward the back rooms, desperate to start his research. System, copy talent, I thought. Ultimate alchemist talent copied. 1 million points deducted. 1 million points felt like a bargain for a top-tier talent. As the notification cleared, Master Zhang disappeared into his private lab. Feng Yuqing rubbed his temples, looking embarrassed. Don't mind him, Subai, he said. Old Zhang gets like this when he's excited. He's probably going into seclusion to study that pill. If he learns even a fraction of its secrets, he'll finally become a third-rank alchemist. It's fine, I replied, waving it off. The deal is done. I should get going. Take care, he said. And tell your father, I said hello. I walked out of the treasure pavilion feeling like I was in a dream. Just a few days ago, I was a loser with a blood chi of 2.5. Now, I was a martial master with billions in the bank and a system that made me a god. I had planned to live a quiet life, but fate had other plans. I decided to just ride the storm and see how far I could go. My phone rang, breaking my train of thought. The caller ID said Dad. I took a deep breath. I never really had a family in my past life, so this was still new to me. Son, where are you? Su Xingzhou's voice boomed through the speaker. Your mother and I are at your villa. Get back here and open the door. My mother, Shiring, was talking in the background, her voice laced with panic. Is he okay? Tell him not to stay outside. The Su family is definitely planning something. Every second he's out there, he's in danger. They were terrified that the Su family would retaliate after what happened at school. I couldn't blame them. I'm on my way, Mom, I said, cutting her off before she could spiral. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Back at the villa, my parents were pacing by the front gate. Do you really think he's a martial master? My mother asked, her eyes wide. He was just a student yesterday. How is that possible? My father tried to look stern, but he couldn't hide the massive grin on his face. We'll find out when the brat gets here. He's got some nerve keeping this from us. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. He was bluffing. He was so proud he looked like he might burst. Last year's national top student was only a primary martial artist. His son was already a high-level martial master. In his mind, I was already the national champion. But beneath the pride, I could see the worry in his eyes. He knew that the stronger I became, the bigger the target on my back would grow. The Su family wouldn't just sit back and watch me rise. They were going to strike, and they were going to strike hard. My mother, Shiring, couldn't stop worrying. She kept pacing, muttering about how we couldn't let the Su family hurt me. Even though the Su family hadn't made a move yet, she was terrified. As a mother, her biggest wish was just to see me grow up healthy. She didn't care about fame or power. She just wanted me to stay alive. My father, Su Xingzhou, cleared his throat and tried to sound practical. He agreed that we had to be careful with my safety, at least until the martial exams were over. Once I was finished, even the Su family wouldn't have the guts to provoke a student headed for a top-tier school like North University. To keep things safe, he suggested that he and my mother move into the villa with me for a few days. I thought about it for a second. The big competition was tomorrow anyway, so I didn't see the harm. I nodded and let them move in. Before night fell, Principal Chen called me. He wanted to go over the rules for tomorrow's grand competition. This wasn't just a local school event. 3 entire provinces, Jiang Province, Donyang Province, and Tao Province, were teaming up to host it. The event was being held right here in Jiang Province. Cities like Kyoto were too far away to join us, so they held their own regional battles. The real purpose of these competitions wasn't just to see who was the strongest student. It was about resources. Every year, cities fought over education funding and cultivation materials. Hundreds of years ago, the Martial Arts Association and the military got tired of the constant arguing. They made a declaration. If you want resources, you have to earn them. That was how the grand competition started. The rankings decided which province or city would get the lion's share of funding for the next year. It was a brutal system where the strong got stronger and the weak stayed weak, but in a world where strength was everything, it was the only way people would listen. The official government still preached equality, but ever since the spiritual chi recovery began, the gears of fate were turned by power alone. The only mercy was a small safety net of resources for smaller cities, just in case a rare genius was born there. Tianhai City was usually a ghost in these rankings. Out of hundreds of cities across the 3 provinces, we usually hovered right in the middle, around the top 100. Every few years, we'd get lucky with a student who had an SS-level talent and break into the top 50, but nobody ever dreamed of anything higher. The top 10 spots never changed. Those cities were the crown jewels of the provinces, where all the best teachers and richest families lived. Talent was often hereditary, so their students started with a massive advantage. While a normal city might have one SS-level talent who reached primary martial artist, a top-tier city's SS-level student would already be a high-level martial artist because of the sheer amount of resources poured into them. Usually, the competition was a standard one-on-one arena tournament. But this year, the rules had changed completely. The higher-ups felt the old way was too rigid. Instead of a ring, we were being thrown into a secret realm for a points-based survival challenge. The military had cleared a safe zone in a newly discovered realm. It was filled with exotic beasts ranging from trainee level to primary martial master level. These beasts were ranked from level 1 to level 9, with each level further split into early, mid, and late stages. A level 1 beast was roughly equal to a trainee martial artist, and so on. Killing these monsters was the only way to get points. A level 1 beast was worth 1, 3, or 5 points depending on its stage. Level 2 beasts jumped to 10, 30, and 50 points. But if you managed to take down a level 3 beast, the equivalent of a martial master, a single kill was worth 200 points. The massive gap was designed to reward those who dared to fight above their level. This was the first time the country was trying this. They wanted us to experience real bloodshed and understand the true desperation of the human race. They wanted us to become warriors, not just athletes. Of course, they weren't sending us in to die. Each of us would be given a distress button before entering. If things got too dangerous, we could press it, but doing so meant instant disqualification. I gripped my phone, feeling the weight of the news. The game had changed, and I was ready to play.